The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. I hope last week was a great week for you. It's rare that you get no Commanders content whatsoever on my channel throughout the course of a week. Even if I know I'm going to be out of the office, I still leave you guys with something, right? That wasn't the case last week. Obviously, last week, if you checked out my podcast, and I know a lot of you don't, so I'll fill you in. Last week was a rough week. You know, the kiddos were sick. Wife was a little under the weather. It was a holiday weekend, you know, compounding matters, making things worse. And so it turned into a pseudo vacation of sorts. It really wasn't a vacation, obviously, because you got stuff you're dealing with at home. But there were times where I could have worked and I just didn't have it in me last week. And I said, what am I jumping on for? Like, what is there to actually talk about other than some things that we've manufactured? And there were some things I wanted to touch on. There were a couple of episodes that I put out the week previous that I wanted to kind of clean up, that I said we would talk about on Monday, and I had every intention of doing that. And obviously things happen, but I do still want to go back and take a look, and we'll do that tonight. We'll go back and we'll take a look at a lot of your comments with the most surprising and most disappointing video that I did with the 10 players, 5 on the surprise side, 5 on the disappointing side. Which would you be most surprised or disappointed by if one of those things were to occur in the upcoming season? Some fascinating comments. And once again, I think I know, but I have no idea. You guys never cease to amaze me. Sometimes I think I got you lined up and I know how you're going to respond to something, and you guys throw me a wicked, wicked, nasty curveball. And that was one of these times. I just knew good and well that what your answer was going to be, and you guys are like, "No, it's not what you think." So, we'll get into that here in a little bit. Obviously, the only real storyline going on with the Commanders right now is the Brandon Aiyuk situation, and really, we don't have anything to do with it. And just let me tease this for a second. Reason I was late tonight was because I just shot a NFC East Super Friends video with the fellas, and we had a special guest. You guys are going to enjoy it. It was a lot of fun. So stay locked in for that. Details to be coming soon as to when you can expect that video to be released, but keep your eyes peeled and ears to the street as far as that one is concerned. So the Brandon Aiyuk situation is interesting, and I think this is one of those Rivera-ism situations. Interesting versus important. When there's nothing else going on and there's nothing to talk about, it becomes more interesting than it should be. There's no importance to this, no relevance whatsoever, which is why I didn't feel the need, because there was a little bit more drama with it last week. And even tonight talking about it, it's redundancy on my end, because I've told you this the entire time. He's not going to be traded. Like there's no reason. And I talked to Ari, which was a great interview, when the second installment of the summer series. We'll talk about that a little bit tonight as well. There's no advantage for the 49ers to trade Brandon Aiyuk unless they're getting back a guy that can help them win right now. If you're not giving them someone in return. So I think for the 49ers, you're going to get probably a second-round pick for Aiyuk if you were to trade him, right? I think the Chiefs got a third-round pick for L'Jarius Sneed. I think they got a third from Tennessee, which is the equivalent of a franchise tag, or excuse me, a compensatory pick, but you're not going to get it that year. Like if that guy leaves in free agency in 2025, which would be the case if Aiyuk isn't re-signed or franchise tag, he'd leave in free agency in 2025. But you're not getting your compensatory pick until 2026. So that's the one of the reasons teams like to make a direct trade. I want my pick now. I don't want to wait until 2026. I don't know what that draft's going to look like. I know what this draft looks like. I know what I need, and I know that I can get it in this draft, so I need the extra draft capital. For a team like Philadelphia that always has a boatload of picks, they can trade Hassan Reddick for a 2026, third round pick or whatever it was. They don't need the pick now, right? So they can push that down the road. Then they look up in 2025 or 2026 or whenever it is, and they go, oh, got an extra pick here. This isn't the NBA. You don't trade players for picks 7 years down the road. I want my capital right now. So the 49ers don't benefit from trading Aiyuk right now because they're not going to be able to use that capital now, is what I'm saying. If they were going to trade him, they needed to do it prior to the draft so that they could get, same thing Kansas City did. They traded him to the Titans. They traded him before the draft so they could get their draft capital and have it in tow heading into the 2024 NFL draft. If the 49ers were going to trade Brandon Aiyuk, which I think they have no intentions of doing, they would have done it prior to the draft because they could have gotten something for him. They're not going to get anything for him other than draft capital, which doesn't help them until next year. They're trying to win a Super Bowl this year, and Brandon Aiyuk helps them win a Super Bowl this year. So I feel redundant in saying all of that. But the fact that this man is posting pictures or one picture of a still photo of our practice is a bit problematic. And I think he might ultimately be fined for this. I think there are certain rules in the CBA that prohibit players from posting photos of, practices and things of that nature. I would think that there would be definitely some repercussions for posting a picture of an opposing team, someone else's team practicing that you're not even on. That makes it 10 times worse. Whatever the case may be, there could be some, financial ramifications. There won't be any like suspensions or anything like that, but he could see some legal action or financial action taken, i.e. a fine by the NFL. We'll see what happens. But I think for most fans, I can't speak for any of you and I won't try to. The thing that Smack City Sneed was traded to the Tennessee Titans. He was franchise tagged and then traded. So the thing that I think is pissing me off as a Commanders fan with this situation is, one, he's not even on our team. Yet you are bringing us into a situation that we have nothing to do with. We've had a clean offseason for the most part. We had one hiccup with Brandon McManus, and they quickly took care of that, right? Oh, you have some sexual, misconduct or assault allegations, you're gone. Bye-bye. That was done, and we moved on. Like, we're not wasting any time with the kicker who might have a checkered background and past. Just move on, right? So we rid ourselves of the one thing that was a pseudo distraction this offseason. But for the most part, we have been blissful this offseason. It's been all, smiles, and it's been all good vibes and happy feelings, right? And Aiyuk comes around, and it's not that it's a like super negative thing, but we keep being linked to Brandon Aiyuk. the whole narrative of him coming to Washington because of his friend Jayden Daniels, best friend, whatever, clearly documented. He went on the Pivot podcast and he said that if he doesn't go back to San Francisco, which he wants to go back to the 49ers, that's his first option. He would like to re-sign with the team that drafted him. He wouldn't mind playing for the Commanders or the Steelers. Those are the two teams that reportedly were interested this offseason. And how far did that interest go? Did the Steelers offer anything for him? We know the Commanders supposedly offered something for him. I don't know if that's true or not. Adam Schefter said it was. Okay, it's true then. Whatever the case may be, he's made it abundantly clear that he'll go to whatever lengths to get paid. And there's this new age in the NFL. I think there's a bit of a generational disconnect, if you will, that these younger players take to social media and they do things that aren't necessarily the cleanest from a negotiation standpoint, but they make their voices heard. Most guys will scrub their social media clean of the team as a way to let them know they're not happy. It's a tried and true method. Everyone does it when they get into contract situations. You're told as a player, don't allow contract negotiations to become personal. It's business, yada, yada. Everybody says, yeah. No, it's business. Nobody ever actually adheres to that methodology. It always becomes personal, right? I've done everything you've asked me to do. I've probably, in most cases, exceeded your expectations. And now you don't want to pay me? What's the problem? Yes, it's personal, right? Aiyuk has taken this a few steps further, however. Okay, it's one thing to scrub your social media, platforms clean of anything that have to do with the team that you are looking to get a contract from. Hell, we've even seen guys, i.e. his teammate, balk at the team and request a trade. They ultimately signed Deebo Samuel to a long-term deal, by the way. So this is not the first time, nor will it be the last time you're going to see a player take to social media, use extreme tactics to get their point across. But this feels a little bit like overkill on the part of Brandon Aiyuk. Like, if your goal is to get paid by the 49ers, why do you keep flaunting and tossing out the idea of playing with the Commanders? Why do you keep posting things that have something to do with us, right? Like, if this is about you and you getting paid and wanting to stay in San Francisco, shouldn't it be about you being in San Francisco, not using a team that you don't currently? And all of this is being done. Like, he's playing a very dangerous game because all of this is being done. This man is still under contract. It's not like he has not signed a franchise tag and he technically is not under contract to any team right now, and he can do whatever the hell he wants to do. That is not what situation he is in. This man still has a year left on his rookie contract. They picked up his 5th-year option. He still technically is a member of the San Francisco 49ers. And you're out here openly talking about going to other teams. Players don't do that. When you ask a player, where would you like to go in free agency? I'll let my agent. They don't tell you 2 particular destinations a lot of times. Unless they're on the trading block and the team is giving him permission to seek a trade. And then you may say, hey, there are certain teams. Like, remember when when we were in the Matthew Stafford sweepstakes? And Matthew Stafford said, I'll go anywhere but one place. We don't know what that one team was. There was a short list of teams that he would have preferred not to go to. I guarantee you we were probably on that short list. He did not want to come here. Okay. Remember Russell Wilson a couple of years back when he started, playing around with the idea of leaving Seattle and being traded. And remember, he had a list of 5 teams. These are the only 5 teams I'd consider waiving my no trade clause to go to. It was something like the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Raiders, and 2 other teams I can't remember. Denver might have been on it, the Eagles or something, the Giants, something like that. You remember the list. We weren't on it, clearly. And we were one of the teams that was interested. Boy, I'm glad that didn't happen. Anyway, it's rare that you hear a player who is still currently under contract looking to get paid by the team that drafted him. It's rare that you hear that player come out and tell someone, these are the 2 teams I'd like to go to if I don't go back to my team. Take it a step further, get on TikTok and say that the team that you want to go back to, they don't want me anymore, which I'm pretty sure they never told Brandon Aiyuk that. The 49ers have never said to Brandon Aiyuk, we don't want you. They've never said that. Those words have never been uttered. Adam Schefter came out and refuted that a day later after that video surfaced on TikTok. And again, if there's anybody plugged into the Shanahan pipeline, it's Adam Schefter. Okay. So when Shefty says that is an erroneous, well, it wasn't a report. That's false. Lies, essentially. I believe him. Okay. Because Kyle Shanahan wants Brandon Aiyuk back. The 49ers want Brandon Aiyuk back. They just don't want to pay him more than what they think he's worth. And that's where the impasse is. They've got enough money to sign him. It's not about they can't afford it. Just because you can afford something doesn't mean you purchase it. Some of you right now have enough cash in the bank to go out and purchase a brand new 2025. I don't know if they have 2025s yet. They might still be 2024s. Showroom floor, right? Whatever the highest model of a, type of car is, you have enough money to go to a showroom floor and say, here's $70K. I'm walking out of here with that car. Just because you can doesn't mean you do that. Is that a smart investment? We all know once you drive a car off of a lot, the value of that car depreciates immediately. It's no longer brand new. Is that a good investment? Is that a sound investment? The 49ers can afford Brandon Aiyuk, but is paying him more money than Amon-Ra St. Brown a smart investment? Knowing you have to pay Brock Purdy next year? Something to think about, right? That's why you draft 2 receivers this year. Allow these guys to go through this process this year while you still have Brandon Aiyuk. And after this season's done, you move on from Aiyuk. If you've seen enough from your first round pick, Ricky Pearsall, to think that he can fill that Brandon Aiyuk role next year, all right, Aiyuk, deuces. It's nice having you. But it doesn't make any sense for them to do that now. And I think what's bothering me is I ain't got nothing to do with this, bro. Like, leave me out of this, okay? Don't use me as a pawn in your game to get paid. If you want to come here, that's cool. But you're not a free agent. And you don't control anything. So you continuing to show clips of us and talking to Jayden Daniels and him showing up everywhere with you and insinuating that, hey, Washington is the next destination. It's just, for me, knowing what I know, which is it's not going to happen, not this offseason at least. Maybe next year he's a Commander. It's just much to do about nothing. And I'd appreciate it if you just left us out of this shit, to be honest with you. We've had a clean offseason. I'd like it to remain that way for the most part. So my question to you is, because it doesn't really bother me. I don't like the fact that he's posting pictures, and you're going to get a lot of fans who go, you know what? Jayden Daniels needs to tell his boy. Jayden Daniels can't tell Brandon Aiyuk nothing. He's a grown-ass man. What I don't like is the fact that he's ending up with our practice, footage, which, again, I don't think that's uncommon. Former college teammates sharing, practice, like, yo, look at this dime I threw at practice the other day, and it's sending him the clip, right? They all have access to the portal. They can all access any team's, footage if they need to. I don't know if they have access to the practice stuff, but they got access to the game stuff, So practice is a little bit much. It's a bit excessive. I think he got it from Jayden. And I just struggle with the concept of, well, this is Jayden Daniels' fault. And that's what's going to ultimately happen, which is why I'm like, I just want to steer clear of this shit. I don't need my young rookie quarterback's image that's crystal, clean and clear right now. It's sparkling. I don't need that tarnished in any way, shape, or form by Brandon Aiyuk's actions. Now people are like, yo, how'd he get this? Hey, don't be giving him our practice film, and hey, get your boy. And now it's going to come down on him. And honestly, he don't have shit to do with this. He just happens to play for this team, and his buddy wants to get paid. And ultimately, that's all this is about. It's not that he's dying to get to Washington. Oh my God, he wants to play so bad. No, he wants to get paid. That's what if the 49ers coughed up the asking price today, he'd sign on the dotted line and all of this would be over with. You wouldn't see another TikTok about him and Jayden Daniels playing on the same. This is all in an effort to get paid. I just don't think most people, I can say this for myself, I can't speak for anybody else. I don't like the way he's going about it. And honestly, I generally don't give a shit what players decide to do in order to get paid. I'm an advocate for players getting paid. Because this league, as we all know, the NFL stands for not for long. Get yours while it's there to be got. I tell y'all that all the time. I'm always going to side with players when it comes to getting paid, especially in this league. The one league of all of the big major 3 sports in the U.S. that don't have fully guaranteed contracts. You sign a Major League Baseball contract, you are getting every single penny of that. Obviously with Uncle Sam getting his cut and your agent getting his cut. But if you sign a $250 million contract in Major League Baseball, you're going to get your $250. Obviously, taxes, agent fees, all that stuff is going to be taken out when it's all said and done. But you're getting your $250, right? In basketball, if you sign a $175 million 3-year extension, you're getting your $175 million. In the NFL, it's the only sport where you can sign a contract that's in excess of, $150 million, but you're not going to see $150 million. It's the most physically demanding, most violent sport, yet it's the one that is paid the least amount of money. We all know why. 53 players versus 15 in the NBA, 20, 25 on a major league roster. We get it. We understand the economics of the situation. Still, it doesn't change the fact that these guys put their bodies on the line, and so they should be paid. And so when a guy tries to get paid, I'm not one to tell him how to go about getting paid. But Aiyuk doing the things that he's done here of late, it's annoying, 1. 2, it's a bit off-putting. 3, I think it cast him in a light that he may not belong in. This seems somewhat selfish, a bit immature. It seems impulsive, right? Although I think a lot of this is calculated on his part. Like, he's filming all of this as if he's going to put together a documentary down the road or something. I don't know what exactly he's doing, but he's doing something. And I don't think he's dumb either. I don't think he's like, oh, I didn't know I couldn't do this. I think everything he's doing is for effect. Now, is it to keep his name out there? Is it to keep him relevant? To keep him in the forefront of people's minds as he tries to get paid? Is it for him to be sending subs through the media to the 49ers? Like, he literally just had a meeting with the 49ers a week ago. Like, what are we doing right now? Like, this doesn't make any sense. All I want from this situation is for this to not fall back on Jayden Daniels. For him to be cast in some light as the bad guy here. How is he getting our practice film? And why is he posting things about our team? Jayden needs to get his boy and this, that. This is part of the reason I don't want Aiyuk here. I said this already. When you have your best friend on the team and you're a quarterback and your best friend is a receiver, I don't know if that's a good dynamic to have or not. I would welcome Aiyuk with open arms should he become a free agent and they decide to go after him aggressively next year and they sign him. And I would have no issues with that. In the back of my mind, I would be like, huh, I wonder if this is going to be problematic down the road, right? Is he going to be playing buddy ball with Aiyuk and forcing it to him when somebody else is open on the field? But that's no different than a quarterback forcing a football to Justin Jefferson or, to a guy like Jamar Chase or one of these elite receivers. If you trust him more than you trust the other guys, I'll give him a chance before I give this other guy an opportunity. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure if I love the idea of Aiyuk coming to Washington. I think I love it even less after seeing how he's conducted himself. But I don't really make a big deal out of all of this. What I want to know from you guys is, do you feel like this has changed the way you view Aiyuk and whether you would want him here in Washington or not? Would you be willing to trade for him? Would you be willing to wait for him next year if he were to become a free agent and want to pursue him inside? Does this change the way you feel about him? Seeing how he's conducted himself on social media, seeing how he's posting things that, are dragging us into a situation that we have absolutely nothing to do with, and again, not that I really am that moved or perturbed by any of this. It's just you're playing it out in a social setting where everyone gets to see it. So it gets a little bit more traction than if Jayden Daniels would have sent him, our practice footage or whatever, and he just watched it at home and we didn't know about it, right? It's because we know about it now. Is that okay? Is he supposed to be doing that? Now there's a million and one questions. At the end of the day, does watching how Brandon Aiyuk has handled this contractual situation, has that changed the way you view him as an individual? Remember the type of culture we're trying to build here. And again, I don't think this makes him a bad guy at all. And again, once he gets paid, we didn't hear from Brandon Aiyuk before all of this. It's not like Brandon Aiyuk has been a malcontent since he got to San Francisco and they've had to deal with this with him. And this is just a part of who he is. We haven't heard from Brandon Aiyuk before any of this. This is all in a this is all in a ploy, and I hate to use the word ploy because that almost sounds as if you're trying to trick someone. It's sort of, some concocted scheme to get paid where he's earned the right to be paid. How much is the question, right? That's what's in question. But I think it's all a means to an end for him to get paid. Does this change how you feel about potentially going out and getting him? I know some people who are like, nah, I'm good on this kid now. I'm good off of him. Like, this is totally revamped my way of thinking on Aiyuk. I want no parts of a dude who's capable of doing these types of things and being selfish and this, that, and the third. And I know a lot of people are like, nah, I'm good. I'm good on Aiyuk. Do you fit into that category? Or are you like, nah, this is just a simple hiccup. He wants to be paid. And once he gets paid, he'll go back to being a good Samaritan. Leave it down in the comment section. Want to hear from you guys and see how you feel. Let's see. I wanted to read some of the comments on the show that we did last week. Well, the show that I did last Sunday. I think I posted it on Sunday. Might have been Saturday. The disappointments and surprises video that I did, right? We talked about, I gave you 5 guys on the surprising side, 5 guys on the disappointing side. Would these guys kind of change the way that, would you be most surprised if XYZ happened, or would you be most disappointed if XYZ happened? So I want to open up a I wanted to open up this chat and read some of these comments, the ones that kind of stood out to me. We'll go through these real quick and we'll react to some of them. I told you we would. I'm a man of my word. So we'll get to a few of these. And then we'll take some comments and we'll get out of here. So at the Willis Lee writes, I'm only 6 minutes in. He says, so I don't know yet the rest of the list to come, but Big Phil was a great choice. My first thought was Percival Butler, who would shock the F out of me if he finally breaks out. But yeah, Fedarian Mathis being a presence would be a true shock. Let me just say this off the strength of what the Willis Lee just said. I was shocked at how many people picked Fedarian Mathis. All right. So while I knew he would be a go-to choice, I just had figured most of you had given up on him already. And so even though if you've given up on him, resurrecting his career from the dead essentially would shock you. I just figured you was like, yo, I'm not expecting nothing from him. I'm going where I can see something actually taking place, right? The Fedarian Mathis choice was greater than that of Terry McLaurin and how disappointed you would be. I was shocked because I thought Terry would be the number one for everyone for the most part. I was surprised. Let's keep going. Rich had a couple of really good ones I wanted to read. First of all, I got to give Rich a hard time. I really got to give Rich a tough one here because Rich, along with Mega, are 2 of 3 people who will be quick to clip me when I say something out of pocket and throw it up in the Discord real quick. I mean, they stay roasting me, right? It's a good time, right? Rich writes, if Juice balls, there's no pause here. Now, I'm not that guy. I'm not the pause guy. I'm not the pause police, okay? That's not my role. I don't play that role. I actually get a crack out of saying things and not saying pause because I know how y'all going to react. But you can't say if Juice balls and then there's no pause there. And he's a pause king, right? He's a pause king, and I can't believe there's no pause here. Anyway, he said if Juice balls, I'll insert a pause there for him. Pause. There's no surprise. I think you're really overstating his failures last year. He wasn't as good as before, but not as bad as you're stating. So let's I want to tackle that. I was really thinking about this first sentence he led with here. I think you're overstating his failure last year, and he wasn't as good before, but not as bad as you were stating. So he was really bad last year. He was bad last year, and I think that he was the one that was hurt the most by the lack of pass rush because he can't run. Right? He can't run with DJ Moore. He can't run with DK Metcalf. He can't run with guys that are legitimate 4-4-4-3 guys. He can't do it. And it was proven last year. He was getting cooked on a regular basis because we couldn't get to the quarterback. And in order for him to be successful, that ball's got to come out when it's supposed to. And if it doesn't, and they got extra time to throw, he's not going to be able to run. And we saw that time and time again last year, right? I don't think I'm overstating how good he was in 2022. I liken his 2022 season to Bashaud Breeland's 2015 season. I liken that to that, right? Those two are very comparable in the sense that who didn't think after 15 when we watched Bashaud Breeland lock up Des Bryant on a Monday night back in 2014 in his rookie season, and then him follow that up with an even stronger 2015 campaign, one that led us to the playoffs. Who didn't think that Bashaud Breeland was on the cusp of becoming a true number one corner in this league? They go out, they sign Josh Norman in that 2016 offseason after the Panthers rescinded the franchise tag. And it's like he was never the same player here. It's almost like he felt undercut, like they didn't believe in him. And then we had Antonio Brown twerking on him, and he was never the same Bashaud Breeland, it felt like. 2022 felt like 2015 Bashaud Breeland for Benjamin St-Juste in the sense that that trajectory was going up. I watched him go toe-to-toe with A.J. Brown. I watched him go toe-to-toe with Justin Jefferson. And yes, Justin got, his licks in. But he was not afraid. He led to an interception in that game on a tip pass. He was in Justin's shit. He went toe-to-toe with Devontae Adams when we played the Packers. Like, in that 2022 season, was Devontae Adams still there? I don't know. He might not have been there. 2022. I think he was already gone. I think he left in 2020 after the 21 season. Let's see, 22 and 23. Yeah, he's been in Vegas for 2 years. So he went toe-to-toe with a number of really good receivers. I'll just say that. I'll just leave it at that. And we watched him play, and we walked away saying, hey, Juice has a chance to be a really good corner. I'm not saying number one, this, that, and the third, but I'm just telling you, we thought he had a chance to be really good. And then he regressed significantly last year. He regressed significantly last year. So I don't think last year, first of all, Benjamin St-Juste doesn't take the football away. So I don't think I'm overstating anything. My problem with him coming out of the University of Minnesota is that he didn't have any interceptions in college. I have an issue, and I've always have, and I always will have an issue with guys who don't have takeaways in college. But you have starts, and you have a bunch of snaps under your belt. You should theoretically stumble into a pick or two during your collegiate career if you are a good cornerback. There's no way teams are challenging you. There's no way that you're not in the right place at the right time. A ball gets tipped in the air, it caroms, and there you are, the beneficiary of a pick, right? Just like he has one career pick in his NFL career, and that was a gift from Desmond Ridder. Like, that didn't happen one time in college. He's not a guy that takes it away. So I would be surprised. He says anything 400 yards and above from Diami is a godsend. I don't expect much from him, so I would be shocked if he did that good. I get that. For Darian, same. I don't expect much, but if he does, I have no other feeling than shock. Again, that's what I was expecting. Kind of similar to what Rich just said. Kind of dismissive. Like, yeah, if he does it, I'll be shocked, but I'm just not expecting it, so whatever, right? Jamin wouldn't shock me because he has the build and athleticism and was good at linebacker, so he can do both. And then he says, Percy, I can see it happening, but based on the quantity of safeties, I will be slightly surprised. So he went from 1 to 5, most surprised to least. Diami, that's who I thought you guys were going to pick. Because a lot of you have given up on Diami Brown. A lot of y'all think he's trash. Some of y'all don't even want him on the roster anymore, right? Mathis is second, Percival third, Jamin, and then Juice is fifth. I don't have a problem with that list, but I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be shocked if Jamin turns into a prolific pass rusher in 1 year. I'm not gonna be shocked if he has 5 sacks this year. I'll be shocked if he has 8.5, 9, 10 sacks his first year being turned loose as a pass rusher. Yeah, I'd be shocked. I'd be very shocked. Colin Talking Sports says most surprising to least surprising. Diami Brown, 1 for him. Percival Butler, 2. Benjamin St-Juste for that. See, I thought Fedarian would be a little bit lower. There are a lot of Fedarians, man. A lot more Fedarians than I thought. And Jamin Davis, 5th. I do think Diami will make the roster, but not have a big impact through the air. I expect Jamin to have a nice season, get it to the quarterback, somewhere between 4 to 8 sacks, I'd guess. Most disappointed to least disappointed. Terry is the one I thought would ring true for everyone as number 1 because He's the guy. He's our new Ryan Kerrigan, the one guy when you suck that you hold on to and say, hey, but at least we got fill in the blank. Terry's the new designated one of those guys, right? Well, at least we got this guy. Throughout all of the years of despair, there's usually at least one player that you can point to and say, well, at least we got this guy. You know, when we were going through those lean years with the early Shanahan years and all of those Zorn years, at least we got London Fletcher, right? Like, at least we got that guy. You know, somebody that's a pro, a borderline Pro Bowler. Probably should have been a Pro Bowler a couple of those years that he didn't go. But hey, at least we got him, right? Then it turned into, 5-6 years later, at least we got Ryan Kerrigan, right? At least we got that guy. Terry's the new, at least we got that guy, right? At least we got, one point before it was Trent Williams. At least we got Trent Williams, right? Then we didn't have him anymore. So I thought it would be Terry, to be honest with you. Sam Cosmi is number 2 for Colin. Deron Payne is 3rd. Jahan Dotson is 4th. Emmanuel Forbes is 5th. If Terry plays all 17 and doesn't get to 1,000, then this season went horribly because that man gets to 1,000 with horrible play calling and quarterback play. So I don't know what happened if he doesn't get to 1,000. If Cosmi doesn't play well, we're screwed. To be honest, I'm not expecting Forbes to be a changed player. I think there will be flashes, but not enough. Let me go through and like these now. I didn't like them intentionally because I wanted them to all be in one spot when I looked at them. I wouldn't have to go chasing any of these down. All right, so let's move on. This is another one from the Willis Lee who writes, Lou, you hit on probably the biggest difference. And there will be a major difference between last year and this season, not just for Benjamin St-Juste, but the whole team. Scheme. Last year, virtually every player regressed and underproduced. If it was just 1 or 2 players, you could point the finger at them as the problems, but it was the entire team. And that says that it was the coaches. It was the schemes. It was the packages. We've made major changes that can do nothing but help these guys showcase their skills and live up to their expectations better than last year. I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. If I could like it 15 times, I would. Rich writes, Forbes, my guy, made plays all throughout last year, even against A.J. Brown, who got the best of him, but he still got plays on him. I'd be very disappointed if the staff can't show the real Forbes in year 2 and he can't progress. So let me get this straight, Rich. So we overrated Benjamin St-Juste, but we didn't give enough credit to Forbes last year. I can't make sense of that. He had limited flashes last year, but the downs were way more prevalent, and the peaks were much milder than the valleys. The valleys were low. The peaks were mild. One of the pass breakups at the end of the Cardinals game to secure the victory and the little, those were nice. Those were too far or few and far between. They were so infrequent that you forget that those plays even existed. Yeah, there was a pass breakup against A.J. Brown. Yeah, but there were a lot more, catches and, him getting stiff-armed or him getting run through by DJ Moore or, A.J. Brown baptizing him for a couple of scores. There's a lot more of that. I wouldn't be that disappointed in Payne if he doesn't get to the mark you said. Just would look at him as expendable. Interesting. I didn't look at it that way. We'll come back to that. I would be disappointed in Terry if he can't get to 1K. If Daniels plays well and gives it to him and Cliff sets him up well. Last year with Eric, that wasn't the case, and he still did it. So that would be bad. I think most people would agree with that. If Jahan looks like he did under Eric Bieniemy, under Cliff Kingsbury and Jayden Daniels, if he plays well and gives it to him, I'd be extremely disappointed. I can't see any way in which Jahan is featured, that they give him opportunities and he gets touches and he doesn't look like the Jahan that we saw in his rookie season. I can't see that happening. They didn't go out of their way to Jahan had games last year. The first Eagles game, the second Eagles game, not even the first one, the second Eagles game, he went over 100 yards in that game. Like, he caught the game-tying touchdown in the first Eagles game. Like, this guy is a problem. We just didn't get him the football enough. So the flashes of Jahan were so infrequent that it's easy to forget how good he can be. But there are games where this man is taking over. His first game in the NFL, he had 2 touchdowns, the very first touchdown of the season, and the game-winning score in his first game as a pro. I find it hard to believe that if they go out of their way to get him to rock, that he's not going to be a problem. Rich goes on to write, if Cosme doesn't perform, I'd be more confused than anything, but I will also come with disappointment. Here is his list. Most disappointing, the least. Jahan is 1 for him. Terry is 2. Forbes is 3. Cosme is 4. And Payne is 5. I'm going to tell you my my list, or give you a pseudo order. I'm not going to give you all 5. But I'll give you a little something on all of these guys a little bit later on. Charlie writes, Percy or BSJ? Let me like these comments as I go. We're not going to read all of these, by the way. We're going to skim through some of these. Percy or BSJ would probably be my biggest surprise, but I have another one for you. The guy you offered up a 004 for, Andrew Wiley. I knew he would come up at some point, and his name did come up a couple of times throughout the comment section. Figuring it out and being a top 10. Whoa, what just happened there? Don't know. Let's go back. Hopefully. They don't get rid of it now. Okay, good. I didn't like it yet. So he says, figuring it out and being a top 10 tackle, or even a tackle we don't have to worry about. Not sure it's possible, but it would be a surprise for the ages with how many view him. My biggest disappointment would definitely be Terry because of his ability and having a QB I'm super excited about. Wiley coming up multiple times makes a ton of sense. And I could have put him in here, but I kind of feel like I know who Andrew Wiley is at this point. I don't see him changing. So, like, I put guys in the conversation because either, like in the case of Terry, despite obstacles being thrown in his way, he still found a way to even last year, where we had 1 minute and 13 seconds left, the defense got to stop, and they threw a hitch to Terry, essentially a wide receiver screen to Terry, so he could get 1,000 yards last year. Without that, he doesn't make it to 1,000, right? Like, he literally had to limp to the finish line, but he got there. That's all that matters. Him not getting there with an offense that you would like to think is going to feature him and make sure he gets his touches would be hard to imagine if he's healthy, right? But we know his talents. We know what he's capable of. That's why it would be a disappointment. Andrew Wiley, you know what to expect. Like, this is who he was in Kansas City. This is who he is now. Like, he's not going to just morph into this magical tackle that's going to have a special season. He has technical flaws and things in his game that he isn't going to be able to change. He's going to overset sometimes, giving up the inside. He's not going to get out of his stance fast enough. So he's going to get beat around the edge sometimes because his feet just aren't fast enough. His hands are going to get slapped down sometimes, because he can be predictable with his punch sometimes. All of these things are going to lead to pressures off of the right side, and Jayden Daniels better be prepared. So I don't think he's going to be a surprise, but it'd be great if somehow, some way, magically, this man morphs into, a above average right tackle. I just don't see it happening. Milstead writes, Fedarian Mathis and Terry McLaurin are his 2 choices. That's what I thought it would be for most people. Terry, especially on the disappointment side. Let's see. So we keep going. T Money says Fedarian Mathis as well. The Code Talker says Big Phil is a run stuffer, nothing more. He had 10 sacks his last year at Bama. I know. I watched those 10 sacks. They weren't like oh, he beat his guy immediately off the line of scrimmage, off the snap. I get it. 10 sacks is 10 sacks. It's hard to get 10 sacks. I don't care if it's in college, in the NFL. But yeah, I don't see him as much more than that either. So 6 sacks would be a lot for him. That said. Joshua says, Darian Mathis definitely deserves another season to see what he's got. As long as he's healthy enough to be a decent depth rotation player, I don't see why he shouldn't be given another chance unless he's seriously injured yet again and is absolutely outplayed in training camp / preseason. That said, I'd be more surprised if Mathis plays up to your scenario than Dotson or St. Juice. I was also saying all season long that Jamin Davis should be blitzing more often. My goodness, the last coaching staff was stubborn. Ugh, weren't they? We've been talking about Jamin Davis's ability to rush for so long. And the fact that they just refused to blitz him and force him into pass coverage. And I guess that's a byproduct, too, of not having other linebackers you trust in those situations. When you got a Cody Barton and a David Mayo, you need Jamin Davis running with the other team's running back. You need that. So he might have also been a byproduct of us just not having enough talent at the linebacker position. Mr. Contra writes, I think Diami is done, Lou, especially if Luke passes the eye test along with decent production. With St. Juice, I think he surprises at least just enough. Those coaches are probably going to get more out of him than they can / will Diami. That's interesting. We'll see. I know they love Luke already. So Diami's going to have to prove it. But I don't think, like, I talked with John Keim, and John Keim said this. There's really no reason to get rid of Diami, and I've been saying that all offseason. Unless Diami stinks it up to the point where there are, guys behind him that are just superior to him, and they don't want to lose those guys. And they had strong camps and preseasons, and they know other teams have been watching, and if they cut him, they may not get him back. I just don't see us being in that position. I don't see enough receivers forcing the envelope, pressing the issue and forcing them to have to make that type of a decision on Diami. I just don't. What about Brandon? We know nothing about Brandon Daniels, Joshua. Nothing. We have no idea what he's going to be. Ronald Tillman says, Mathis would be a bigger surprise in your scenario. I never thought he was a second-day pick, and there's very little difference between him and Ridgeway, who was a fifth-round pick. The other scenario would be Payne, because I think he's one of the better defensive linemen in the league. So if he doesn't thrive in his defense, he was only a one-year wonder who played for a contract similar to Albert Haynesworth. Me and Ronald are thinking along the same lines. Hint, hint. It would have to, Quan Bond says it would have to be Diami Brown. If he's putting up those type of numbers as the third, four-string wideout, that would mean JD5 is having a crazy year. Could be, or it could be similar to last year with Curtis Samuel. Curtis was technically our number 3 receiver, if we were being honest. Who went into last year thinking that Curtis was going to have numbers greater to that of Jahan Dotson? Who thought that? Raise your hand going into the season. My hand is down, by the way, because I thought it was Terry, Jahan, and then Curtis, right? Curtis was the second best receiver on this team, and it felt like it. Even if the statistics don't necessarily scream that, we watched the games, and there was never a stretch where we went, well, damn, where's Curtis? Curtis touched it every game. Jahan didn't, So it could be a situation where there's just a rapport between Diami and Jayden Daniels, right? Or Jayden and Luke. And it doesn't exist for Jahan. And so they have better numbers. You don't know what it ended up being, right? But if Diami's putting up those type of numbers, it probably does mean JD had a hell of a season. Kevin, the PRF, says 50 seconds in, literally, I'm like, Wiley. So somebody brought him up already. You're not the last person to bring up Andrew Wiley. I just don't see it. I'm not going to even put that. I'm not even planting that seed. I'm not even putting that out there because I just don't see it with him. But maybe we'll have a form of offense that fits him a little bit more this year and kind of suits his skill set a bit more. Arrive violently, HTTC writes, I think Jamin Davis will have the best season under this regime, barring injury. My biggest surprise has to be Big Phil. I'm a Juice fan, but I'm worried the most about De'Ami Brown. I hope he makes the roster, but if one of these young dudes balls out, he will be gone and end up on Seattle's roster. I guess that's a ode to his buddy, Sam Howell, I guess. Derek B. Writes, I would be shocked if we got anything resembling second-round production from Phidarian Mathis. Stunned. Forget about numbers, just him looking the part. I think that's how most people felt. Disappointed wouldn't even come close to describing how I would feel if the D and Deron Payne didn't stand for dominant in 2024. I don't see any way that happens. I would be depressed. You know, that's his guy. Deron Payne is. I'm going to speak to that a little bit later on. I would extend Cosme before the season, so I would be most disappointed in him if he doesn't give us the top 10 guard play in 2024. I don't necessarily disagree with that idea. I think the only reason you would not re-up with Cosme before the season is he's only done it once. So needing to see that it wasn't a fluke would probably be the only reason I would say that they would go, no, just do it again. And we promise we got the cap space. It's not an issue. We'll break you off. Just do it again. And if he does it again, I don't see any way he's not back here in a Commander's uniform as one of the highest paid interior offensive linemen in the league, right? Bonus, he says, I would be shocked if more than 5 of Ron's draft picks were still with the team at the start of the 2025 season. So let's talk about that. 5 of Ron's draft picks. Ron was here starting with the 2020 draft. Most of those guys, if not all of them, are gone now. They did not bring back Cam Curl. Chase got traded. Antonio Gibson left in free agency. That entire draft class is pretty much gone. There's no more James Smith-Williams. I think he signed with the Bills, if I'm not mistaken. I think that whole entire draft class might be gone. I could be forgetting one guy, maybe, but I feel like that whole entire draft class is no longer here. 2021, I think, obviously, you've got Cosme and Juice and Jamin Davis from that class right off the bat. So if Jamin plays well, he could be back. If Cosme plays well, you expect him to be back. If Juice plays well, I don't see any reason why he couldn't be back here. So that would be 3 guys. After that, in 2021, I don't think any of the players remain. Shaka Tony's no longer here. Dax Milne is still here, but I don't see him making the roster. They cut Cam Cheeseman already. Am I missing anybody of importance or note? Trying to think about some of the mid-round guys. I mean, I think I already said most of them, though. And De'Ami is another one, obviously. We had 2 third-rounders. I don't think we had a 4th-rounder that year. And then we traded away some picks to get Cheeseman and all of the 7th-rounders that we had. So there are 4 of them left right now. 5 if you count Dax Milne. But, Jamin Davis, Benjamin St-Juste, De'Ami Brown, Sam Cosme, Dax Milne. 5 guys from that 2021 draft. 2022, I still think it's too early to move on from a lot of those guys. So I think this is where it's going to turn your draft picks, 5 of them, upside down, right? And 2023, that was Ron and company's last draft. So there's no reason for a lot of those players to be gone anywhere. But 2022 is the one, right? Because they got a decision to make on Jahan to pick up his 5th-year option. They have to make that decision next year, right? So we'll see what they decide to do. After this season, we'll know. Phidarian Mathis has been an abject disaster thus far, but a lot of that has been because of injuries, right? So if he's healthy, let's just see what happens. It looks bleak for him because we still have the Bama wall, and then they added another guy as a second round pick that they're really high on. And so it just seems like but there's still snaps there for another defensive lineman. Can Fidarius Mathis grab those snaps and make them his own? We'll see. But if we're talking about keeping Payne and Allen fresh and having this rotation, we heard Joe Witt Jr. say, hey, we rolling up with like 17, 18 dudes and we whooping folks. We whooping people. Like a wise man once said, whooping feet. So if that's the case, then you got to think that we're going to be rotating those D tackles in and out. And if that's the case, then there's going to be opportunities for a guy like Fidarius Mathis to get on the field. But you get past that pick. Sam Howell's no longer here. You got Brian Robinson. You have what's the tight end's name? Oh man, why I can see his face. I just can't think of it. Cole Turner. So you got Cole Turner. You got Brian Robinson, Sam Howell. So let's go in order. Jahan Dotson, Fidarius Mathis, Brian Robinson Jr., Sam Howell, and Cole Turner in the 5th. And then I think it was Percival Butler in the 4th round that year. I want to say yes. So Percival Butler, and then Defoe. I forgot him in that 2021 draft as well. Defoe is in there too. He could also be back. Just got to see how it goes, right? Don't want to forget Defoe. And who did we get at the end of that draft last year? Or 2 years ago? Was there anybody significant? Doesn't feel like it right now. I don't think it was anybody significant. Oh, Chris Paul. That's what it was. Chris Paul. And he may end up playing a significant role for all we know. So there's that. And I think you're going to have 3 or 4 of those dudes back next year. So I think that kills your 5 right there. But again, with the way they're turning over this roster, you could be spot on there. And then obviously 2023. And I think that's where it's hard to say, because you're going to have your 1st round pick from 2023 still here, which is Emmanuel Forbes. You're going to have your 2nd round pick, Quan Martin, who they actually really like. Here's where things get a little dicey, because Ricky Stromberg in the 3rd, the offensive lineman in the 4th from Utah, Braden Daniels. They got to get on the field, man, or they become expendable. If they don't show anything in camp to even be a viable backup, I think Ricky Stromberg is going to be fine. It's Braden Daniels that I'm concerned about. He's the one that I'm worried about, because I didn't like him coming out of college, first and foremost. And clearly he wasn't ready last year, which is why they put him on IR. So him in particular is the one where I'm going, y'all might have messed around and wasted a draft pick there. Then you got KJ, Chris Rodriguez, and Andre Jones Jr. And KJ has a shot. I think he's going to get cut this year, but KJ has a shot. Chris Rodriguez is going to be here. It feels like it. They like the young man. He's going to be here. So I think you're off, way off on the 5 draft picks. But I get your point. I know what you're trying to say there. I understand where you're going. Arrive Violently HTTC writes, I would be most disappointed in Jahan Dotson, because I really like his game and I think he's a #1 receiver. So that would really disappoint me. If Terry goes for 800 yards and 10 touchdowns, I'll be happy with that. I would be disappointed. I'd love the touchdowns for him. because that's never been something he's been prolific at. Terry's highest number of touchdowns, you can fact check me on this, but I feel pretty confident, is 7, and that came in his rookie season. So him getting to 10, that's an astronomical number for Terry. But 800 yards isn't good enough. It just simply is not. Kevin the PRF says 1 for each category not included. Surprise, Ramiz Ahmed. Imagine if we got a backup plan kicker who's never held it down on an NFL roster spot and he's fire all season. That would be nice. It's hard for me to put a guy on the list that might not even make the football team. Like, I would put Ramiz Ahmed as our kicker and him being on, I'd put that at less than 50-50. I'd give him like a 40% chance to make this team right now. Granted, he's like the major kicker they have in right now. There are going to be all kinds of kickers getting cut loose. And all it takes is for one established veteran kicker to get cut 2-3 weeks into camp or 2-3 weeks into the preseason if the team's having a battle, for Ramiz Ahmed to get pushed aside. So, disappointment, Wagner. What if Seattle saw the writing on the wall and he's full Thomas Davis in DQ speedy defense? So, see, I like that you brought that up because I don't think a lot of people are going to bring that up. So, here's the thing. Wagner wasn't brought here to be the Bobby Wagner of 5 years ago. Future Hall of Famer, All-Pro, Pro Bowl. He wasn't brought here for that. He was brought here to help mentor the guys that are here, like our 5th round pick this year. You know, he was brought here to instill culture, which he has already done. His leadership qualities have shown through in just these brief 2.5 months that he's been here, right? How many times have we heard a conversation surrounding Bobby Wagner and players picking his brain and asking him questions and things of that nature, and his workout routine and how he stayed in the league this long? And that stuff isn't lost on these other players. Seattle might have said to themselves, he's not the same Bobby. No one would know more than them. They've seen the best of Bobby Wagner. They know what it looks like. And if they decided, nah, we're good, that probably means there was some decline. He still led the NFL in tackles last year. He's going to be a good player. This is the thing. Seattle fans might be like, yo, he ain't the same dude, this, that, and the third. And they're right. But we haven't seen anything like him here. So it doesn't matter if he doesn't play to the standard that we've set for Bobby Wagner. He's still going to be better than anything that we've had here in the last decade almost. Since literally, we haven't had anybody even remotely close to him since London Fletcher. Or as the organization called him, London Flector. Lynn Ryan Benvenite writes, Diami would surprise me most. I expect everyone on defense to elevate their game with better coaching and scheme. I think Juice is going to have a breakout type year under this staff in their aggressive system. We will see. I just don't trust him to catch the football, but he can make a believer out of me. Swagger Dagger says 6 sacks for Big Phil. I started dying laughing. I think a lot of people, I was shocked at how down bad. I don't know why I was. I guess I should have theoretically understood how this fan base felt about Phidarian Mathis, but I don't know. I guess I looked at him and said, the dude's been hurt. It's not like he's been on the field and he's just been trash. He's been banged up. You know, injury, you can't help injuries. You know, no one plans to get hurt. But man, the Big Phil disdain was on full display. Here's another one. Weber the Hedgehog, right? Phidarian Mathis turning into anything at all takes the cake. The coaching staff drafted Johnny Newton, so it shows that they don't even believe in him, which I don't blame them. That was less about them not believing in Phidarian Mathis and just them believing in the player that was there and couldn't believe that he was. Same thing I said when he got drafted, which was, hey, if this dude is there, you got to take him. He's the best. We talked about BPA. That was literally BPA. He says, I would be stunned if he got 6 sacks. Most disappointed would be Terry McLaurin, but the idea of Cosme not showing up next year scares me more overall. I think that's a really good take. Like, I think most people feel like Terry not getting to a K is unheard of. It's uncivilized. But if Cosme's not good on an offensive line that we already have doubts about, oh my stars. What would next year be, right? Brian Butler says, I'd be most surprised if Andrew Wiley has a solid season as a starter and gives up first of all, giving up less than 4, if that's the barometer, giving up less than 4 sacks, we're down bad, man. Like, you want guys giving up less than 2 sacks in a season. Like, you get beat once. I'd rather you get called for holding, 4 or 5 times and only give up 1 sack than give up 5 sacks and get called for holding once. Because at least you stopped the hit on my quarterback. You were going to give up the yards anyway. At least with the holding penalty, we get the down over and we get a chance to make up. Like, if it's 2nd and 20, that's better than 3rd and 19. I got 2 plays to get 20 yards. You give up the sack. I got 1 play to get 19 yards and my quarterback got hit. So 4 sacks is crazy. If that's the bar, boy, we're down bad. Real bad. I expect all the guys in the secondary to have a much improved year. I'd be most disappointed if Andrew Wiley looks the same or as worse as he did last year and starts at right tackle. Well, prepare yourself. I don't know if he's going to look any worse than he did at the beginning of last season. He did finish a lot stronger. We found ourselves saying his name less and less at the end of the season, but we also cared less and less at the end of the season as well. So I'll just say this. Prepare yourself. Rumteen says, my most to least surprising, Mathis, Jamin Davis, Diami, Percy, and then Juice. Mathis at the top. What a surprise. Which, you know what? I get it. I just didn't realize how much hate there was for, or how down people were on him. I won't even call it hate as much as just surprised at how there are 0 expectations for, like, I still think Mathis can be a really good player. And when I say really good, I use that term loosely. I never saw him as a guy that can get to the quarterback when we drafted him. None of us thought he was a 2nd-round pick. That's not a surprise. They overdrafted him. But I think he can be a solid, 2.5 sack, 7 tackle for loss or 5 tackle for loss guy, similar. Okay. I can't say similar to Tim Settle because Settle had some years where he got 5, 6 sacks, I think. He might have 1 or 2 of those years here. It was like 4.5 and then another one with 6 or something like that. I don't think he'll be that. But I could see him being a step down from that. All right. We'll see. Dylan Zipperer says, if Phil Mathis has 6 sacks, I'd be floored. I'd be impressed if he had 3 and played a solid role. I think he can do that. I'd be most disappointed if Terry misses 1K, but it wouldn't be much worse if Cosme or Dotson falls flat for the team's future. Yeah, and I think a lot of people feel that way. Rumteen says, I think Forbes not making at least solid number 2 corner after this season would be a biggest disappointment. Not only because he was a 1st-round pick, but because of the coaching staff's profile and the fit with Forbes' traits, or at least those advertised. In terms of importance, I think Forbes' success is near the top because of the question marks at our other premium positions. We still need an offensive tackle and a DN, which will demand a 1st-round pick. If Forbes doesn't pan out, then we need to add corner to that list of 1st-round needs and push our timeline out another year, in my opinion. And wide receiver will be another premium we need 3 years from now. That being said, if this staff doesn't get Forbes to at least a solid number 2, it'd be a massive disappointment considering the cost is another 1st-round pick to address his position while still having needs at nearly all the other premium ones. That is a great point that we really haven't talked about is we know we're going to need a left tackle, right? Assuming Brandon Coleman isn't it. If he is, even if that's the case, we're still going to need a right tackle. Like, we are far from done on this offensive line. And all of us can agree on that. Even if we hit on the free agent acquisitions this year of on shucks. Why am I blanking on the center and the right guard? Y'all know who the hell I'm talking about. The center we got from Dallas and the guard we got from the Chiefs. Even if we hit on both of them, we still need to solidify the tackle positions. And Cosme is who he says he is, who we think he is. The interior is fine, right? Biotish, that's his name. Tyler Biotish and Nick Allegretti. That's the other one. If the interior is solidified with those three, Cosme, Biotish, Allegretti, we still need tackles. If Coleman pans out, then you still need a right tackle. So you're still not done on the offensive line no matter what. We know we're going to need a defensive end. Like, it's cool to go into this season with no expectations and having Cleveland Farrell start opposite of my goodness. My brain today. Dorrance Armstrong. It's cool to have him starting across from him this year. It's not cool long term. That's why they signed him to a 1-year deal. If they thought Cleveland Farrell, it's funny. A lot of people are trying to. Cleveland Farrell is nice. I don't know what you're talking. Oh, really? Okay, that's nice. I'm glad you feel that good about him. He's solid, but if they thought he was that good, he'd be signed to a 3-year deal like Tyler Biotish and Dorrance Armstrong and Frankie Louvu got signed to, not a 1-year deal. So that tells you how they feel about him. So, Rumteen, I think you're onto something there. Like, Forbes, in the grand scheme of things, is very important that he turn into something. If he isn't any good, we got nothing at corner. Assuming that Juice is basic, which I don't want to assume that. But guys that don't take it away, there's a ceiling on how good you can be in this league. You have to scare a quarterback in knowing that if I make a mistake, he can make me pay. Like, what's stopping you from taking shots at Juice if you know all the best he's gonna do is knock it away and then do this shit, right? If that's the best he's gonna do, I'll try him again on 3rd and 8 on the next set of downs. Again. Because he's not gonna make me pay. Billy Salsa says, yes, Mathis, not good. So he kept it short and sweet. Mikey writes, we need to stop expecting that our 4th or 5th wide receivers are making 600+ yards. Diami had no chance once we drafted Dotson and signed Crowder. We got Zacchaeus and McCaffrey now. We might trade him because he got too much talent not to get 3 targets each time. So you're assuming that they see Diami as the 4th or 5th option. What's stopping them from starting Diami as the 3rd guy, the first backup to Terry? Terry comes off the field for any particular reason, Diami goes in the game. John Kama already told you throughout camp he's been running with the ones. Again, it's camp or off season, excuse me, OTAs. It's off season. So you want your experienced guys out there. You don't want rookies running around out there. But who's to say that if they go 3 wide receiver set, it's not Terry as your X, Diami as your Z, and Jahan in the slot? Who's to say that that's not the alignment that we're looking at? Just something to think about. It may ultimately be Jahan as the Z and Luke McCaffrey as your slot. That might very well be the case. I'm just saying, we just don't know right now. Denzel Murray says Ridgeway might have been a DQ pick in Dallas, so he would probably make the roster. We can't say that. You know, we can't say because he didn't make the roster in Dallas. If DQ was that high on him, they would have never cut him. Let's keep going. Anthony King says, if Quan Martin doesn't solidify himself as the starting safety for the 25 season, I would be disappointed, especially with the buzz he has created within the organization and the fan base. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see Quan Martin failing. I don't. I think he's going to be really good. And to your point, if he doesn't establish himself as a premier player with this group, meaning the coaching staff, I would be disappointed. I would be, because I really think he's going to be good. Satire writes, or what is that? Not satire. What does that say? I'm not even going to try. I tried to, like how you read license plates. I'm terrible at this game. I'm actually better when it's on a license plates. You guys get really creative here, and I always mess it up. He says, I don't want to jinx it, but we'll all assume Brian Robinson plays well. We'll see. AJ Meehan says, surprise for me will be Derek Forrest. Feel like everyone is writing him off now that we have Chin and Quan penciled in to start, but I think he balls out this year with the staff that becomes a turnover machine. He's interesting. I think he is a bit of a wild card because, to your point, he's being overshadowed because they're going to play a lot of 3 safety looks where Chin comes down into the box, because we know Quinn loves to do that as an extra defender in the box, almost as a pseudo linebacker. And Forrest will probably be the guy that, you know, gets the call to come onto the field in that instance. And we saw his ability to take it away in 2022. So he'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. Eric Sunderland says, from your options, I'd be surprised if Diami getting 700 yards and disappointed by Terry. I'd be most disappointed if B-Rob takes a backseat to Eckler and regresses in a smaller role. Not going to happen. Eckler, at this point of his career, is a specialty back. You can't hand it to him, 22 times in a game. I mean, you can, but you're asking for trouble if you do that. This is B-Rob's show until otherwise notified. This is his show. Cody, man, it's been a long time. Cody. I heard that name since the football pool and the LTN exclusives last year. Percy Butler would be the biggest surprise, but I don't see him getting many opportunities to see the field as last year. And you know what? I threw him in there because I think he's got the skill set, the Swiss Army knife type of ability that I think this staff will ultimately value as the pads come on. However, to your point, it's going to be hard for him to see the field, with all of the safeties that we currently have and them adding Jeremy Chin. I'm still at a loss as to how this all works. Well, we moved on from one safety and you added another one. So I guess that's how it works. Because you should still end up with 5. You have Defoe, Percival, Quan, Jeremy Reeves, and you have Jeremy Chin. So we're fine. I keep thinking that there's an extra guy, and I'm like, uh-oh. But there's not, because there's no more Cam Curl. Payne would be the biggest disappointment because Washington has already given him a second contract. All the other dudes are on rookie deals or have established themselves as foundational pieces to the organization. We're going to come back to that. Life, no life, writes, disappointment would be Zach Ertz. Our game against the Cardinals last year, Ertz was dropping a lot of catchable passes. Granted, Josh Dobbs was not accurate, but Ertz looked washed, in my opinion. Like, I know he rested last year, but he looked as slow as Logan Thomas in that game. Surprises would be Derek Forrest. I prefer Derek's physical attributes at free safety over Quan, and I like Quan. So Ertz wouldn't be a disappointment because, much like Bobby Wagner, he was brought here on a 1-year deal as a leader, specifically, not necessarily for what we expect from him on the field. Although, unlike when we signed Thomas Davis and brought him here as an emotional support instead of a guy that could actually contribute on the field. Ertz still has something left, as does Bobby Wagner. So we expect them to have contributions that will help this team in some way, shape, or form. I think disappointment is a bit of a stretch for Ertz, because that would mean you are expecting big numbers from him, and you shouldn't. That's why they drafted Ben Sinnott. Like, he's here, much like Washington drafting Jordan McGee and wanting him to learn from Bobby Wagner. They drafted Ben Sinnott, and they want him to learn from Zach Ertz. So you're not wrong about Ertz in our game last year. He dropped a touchdown. He dropped like 2 or 3 passes in that game. And yes, he is a lot slower. Zach Ertz was never fast. But as he's gotten older, the one step that he did have is gone. So he is slow, but he knows how to get open. He catches the football. I got no issues with Zach Ertz. He's a big target. I think he's going to be just fine. But I think saying he would be a disappointment is a stretch. Darnell says you forgot Hampton, Dominique Hampton. That's the extra safety. So there was an extra safety. And I'm like, somebody might be the odd man. Like, generally, when a new regime comes in, all of their draft picks make the team. The only guy that I told you I don't think he's going to make the team this year is the 7th round pick, John Baptiste out of Notre Dame, Cavante John Baptiste. Everybody else is going to make this football team. That includes Dominique Hampton at safety, I believe. Now, if Hampton, is solid, but they don't think anybody else is going to poach him, and they cut him and they know they can get him back on the practice squad, then they'll do that. But if they have to choose between him and Percival Butler, and they don't really like what they've seen from, they'll cut Percy's ass before they cut, Dominique Hampton, because that's the guy they drafted. If they think there's a chance they can lose Dominique Hampton, they will cut one of Ron's guys first before they cut one of their own guys. Keep that in mind. So I think Dominique Hampton is making his football team, is what I'm telling you. But if he makes the team, now you got 6 safeties. You can't keep 6 safeties. You just can't. Not unless you can, theoretically, unless you're keeping 11 DBs, because you have to keep 5 corners. You have to. Now, again, you could keep 4 corners, and you could convince yourself that, hey, Quan Martin in a pinch could play corner. Do you really want to go down that road, though? You don't. Okay? So you're going to have 5 corners, and you want to, theoretically, this is supposed to work with 10. 5 corners, 5 safeties. Because we have a roster in flux with high turnover, you could pinch another position, i.e. offensive line, or you could pinch another position, i.e. running back or tight end or receiver, where there's not as much talent, where there's a position where there's an abundance of talent at safety, and say, no, we don't want to lose any of these guys. They all hold value. Again, something to think about. Jose says, I'll definitely be upset if Terry doesn't get 1,000. I think a lot of people echo those sentiments. Straight Edge writes, I'd be most surprised by Diami or Percival. Terry would be the most disappointing. That's what I thought. My guy, DD Slice, a.k.a. Twin D, writes, surprise, Benjamin St. Juice. I just don't see him taking the ball away. He doesn't. To me, he'd have to be a lockdown corner in order to make up for the lack of ball skills. Disappointment, Jahan. While, yes, he felt like he was doing cardio, I understand why he dropped balls. And with supposedly the best hands on the team, we cannot afford to have what he does best not being done when it's just not good enough at the receiver position. He did have some drops last year. I will not deny that. But that's not why he didn't get the ball, Twin D. He didn't get the ball because our coordinator made a conscious effort to go out of his way to spread the ball around. Right? He forgot that he wasn't in Kansas City, so the tight ends were getting a huge chunk of the targets, and we were throwing the ball to guys like they did the whole, well, the coverage is going to dictate where the ball goes. Well, duh. If I'm playing against the Washington Commanders, my coverage is going to dictate that Terry McLaurin doesn't get the football. So if you're not going to go out of your way to make sure that he does, he'll never see the football. I can't. Now with Jahan, I can't explain why he didn't get it more. I understand why Terry didn't get it more. If your philosophy is the defense is going to dictate where the ball goes, then your best players will never see the football. Because if I'm playing against you, I'm taking away your best players. So now you have to go somewhere else. Which is why teams don't usually operate under, well, the ball's going to go where the defense dictates it goes. That's cool if it's, in the course of a game, yeah, like, my guy's the first read, but the coverage they're playing is taking him away. I go to my second read and he's wide open. You get him the football, right? Every pass, every play isn't going to your best player, but there should be certain plays where, hey, we're getting our guy the football here. That's how this is drawn up. And if we get the look, he's definitely getting the football. I'm going to play a clip for you guys from Tom Brady the next on Thursday's show when we go live. I'm gonna play a clip from you for you guys from Tom Brady that I want you to hear. And this is the shit I've been saying for years, right? The Brotherhood 6391. My man named all 3 career NFL touchdowns by Dyami Brown. That's all he has is those 3. That's sad. And I was like, y'all know my mind it can be like a steel trap sometimes. Not all the time. But this is recent. Dyami Brown is still on his rookie contract. So this is all fresh. So, I'm playing Dyami Brown's career through my head and I'm like, well, he had 2 against the Titans and he had 1 against Seattle. I might have forgot 1 in his rookie season. I didn't. He didn't score at all in his rookie season. He had 2 against the Titans in 22 and he had 1 against the Seahawks last year. That's it. And I was hoping I was wrong and he had 5 career touchdowns, but it's just 3, which would make him having a 705 touchdown season remarkable at this point. It feels like it, at least. Will Morris writes, I feel like my biggest disappointment would be Emmanuel Forbes. When I look at the support that our players are getting now compared to the previous regime, I honestly don't know how much of these players' lack of success has to do with talent or inept coaching. However, Forbes, as a first-round pick with all those expectations, to then be run out of the league like a punk would be horrendous. Ron's staff praised him all last offseason and then stood around with their arms crossed when he struggled. I would be okay with Terry not getting to 1,000 if he has 2 or more Bills in the playoffs. I got that. I mean, if we get to the playoffs, would you trade Terry not having 1,000 yards for a playoff appearance and potentially a win? Hell yeah, right? We'd sign up for that shit quickly. Terry would probably sign up for that. But he wants to be a bigger part of why the team is successful. But I'm pretty sure if you ask Terry, 812 yards and 8 touchdowns and the playoffs, or 1,300 yards, 1,316 yards, 11 touchdowns and no playoffs, I'm pretty sure Terry would say, yeah, give me the former, right? That means that the ball was being spread around nice and thick. Like, also, that would take away my need to feel disappointed about Jahan. My biggest surprise, there are others I might prefer being a surprise like Dyami or Juice, but as far as actual surprise, for Darian Mathis, I ain't seen it to believe it. Hope he shows me what's up. I think most people feel that way about Fedarian Mathis. Showtime Trey says, we got to stop hyping up. Nobody's hyping up Percival Butler at this point. Nobody's doing that. I wasn't hyping him up. Bro was missing tackles in the box, letting running backs go for 64 and a TD. Like, yes, he did it multiple times. Ramondre Stevenson had a career high run on a missed tackle. The Seahawks running back, Kenneth Walker III, had a nice run that shouldn't have gone for a touchdown because Percival missed the tackle. He was awful in that regard. No one's denying that. His coverage skills had Russell Wilson looking like a prime form as well. Facts again. I'm good on him making the lineup. Prefer Revo. And he may be the odd man out because at least All-Pro Revo has a niche that he's carved out for himself, whereas Percival doesn't. If there's 6 safeties, which I just gave you 6, and they got to trim off fat and get it to 5, who right now, as we sit here on July 8th, who's the odd man out? What are we saying, right? It's definitely Percival Butler, right? Now, Defoe, on the last year of his deal, right, would be in that conversation, but it's got to be Percival Butler at this point. I think that's the case. Andrew Wiley cementing that right side with Cosme would surprise me most. Jahan falling short would disappoint the most. Okay. That was from CJ. EFL 100s writes, Emmanuel Forbes or Jahan Dotson being a bust would disappoint the most. Either Jamin Davis or Juice will surprise me the most if they ball out. Gotcha. Mecca says Mathis would be extra surprising, not gonna lie. That's what a lot of people say. Amik 89 says, you mean Terry working on 5? He would be getting his 5th consecutive year of 1,000 yards. He's only got 4. He's only been in the league 5 years. This is year 6. He did not get 1,000 yards in his rookie season. So he's working on his 5th consecutive. If I said anything different, then pardon me. But he's 4 straight years of 75 catches and 1,000 yards. Only 4 receivers are doing that. Terry's one of the 4. This would be year 5 of him having consecutive 1,000-yard seasons if it were to come to fruition. Ivan says, I'm going to say Jahan Dotson has more to prove because he's a first-round pick, and last year was a big disappointment. You're not wrong about that. Last year was because we were talking, when it came to Jahan, we were talking about massive improvement, like this huge, humongous second-year leap. Instead, we saw like sort of a pseudo sophomore slump from him. And again, I really kind of want to take everything that we saw last year from anybody on the team on any side of the ball with a grain of salt. I almost want to give everybody a pardon or a pass. It was that bad last year. It was that bad. Eric DeBose writes, Big Phil would easily be the biggest surprise to me if he balled out. With the injury history and just not showing that type of potential production, even when he's on the field, leads me to believe it's impossible for him to hit the achievements you mentioned. Forbes would be most disappointing to me because he was a first-round pick. And considering how Witt and Quinn have strong track records of getting the most out of corners, there's no reason for Forbes not to have a bounce-back season this year. Hell, he didn't do anything last year, so some visible positives should be easy for him to reach this year. There were some moments last year. He had the pick against Denver. He started out strong against Arizona. He made some plays against, as Rich alluded to, he made some plays against A.J. Brown. A.J. made way more against him, but he stood up a couple of times last year. So he showed a few flashes, but obviously, when you're a first-round pick, we need to see more than that, clearly. Wild NWA writes, Mathis would be the biggest surprise. I don't think he makes the roster. Terry would be the biggest disappointment, playing with the best QB of his career. Dave in DC writes, you win. All 5 choices would surprise me equally. That right tackle having a semi-good year would be a shocking surprise. He's talking about Andrew Wiley. On the other hand, I would not be disappointed in Forbes, as Ron Rivera always drafted backup players in every round. I blame Ron Rivera for placing Forbes in a horrible position. #HTTC. And that's not to say that if we would have passed on him in the first round, that he wouldn't have gone somewhere else in the first round. But my guess is, and this is just a hunch, I can't say that everybody claims they loved Forbes last year, but did they love him enough to make him a first-round pick? Is the question. Everybody keeps saying, oh, we love this kid last year coming out. Oh, did you really? Only way that we would have been able to substantiate that is had we passed on him, what would have happened? Had we taken Gonzalez, were the Patriots going to then take Emmanuel Forbes, or would they have passed on corner altogether? Or would they have taken some other corner that went after, Forbes and Gonzalez did? Who knows? The Podcat says, I've said it for a while. I think Wiley would be one of the biggest surprises. I think last year's system was garbage for him, and he will benefit from a Kingsbury Johnson system. Okay, we'll see. I hope you're right, the Bobcat. I hope you're right. I just don't see it. Just because I don't see it doesn't mean it cannot come to fruition. We'll take a couple more of these. Oh, we got to the top. Look at that. That was beautiful. We got through the whole entire thing. That is awesome. Mr. John D. Rich, excuse me. Mr. John D. Rich writes, I'm definitely going with Terry as far as who I would be most disappointed with underperforming. He's been so consistently dependable his whole career, whereas Deron Payne's 2022 campaign was somewhat of an anomaly. Payne was a solid lineman up until 22, but had never put up eye-popping numbers. However, I would be shocked if Terry didn't get 1,000 yards. If anything, I think this is the year he gets closer to that elusive 1,400-plus yard season. That is a big statement from Mr. John D. Rich. He's not wrong about Deron Payne, and we're going to get to him in a second. And he's not wrong about Terry. But 1,400 yards for a guy that has never had 12 in his career? That's a bit of a stretch for me. I mean, because, you're coming into a system that's new for everybody. That's number one. Number two, you're talking about a rookie quarterback. I mean, how many yards do we really think Jayden Daniels is throwing for in his rookie season? I mean, C.J. Stroud had one of the greatest rookie seasons that we've seen, and he threw for just over 4,000 yards last year. I mean, that's not normal for a rookie quarterback to throw for over 4 bills, right? So, I can't see Terry having a 1,400-yard year, Jahan having a 700-800 yard year, the tight end position combining for 700-800 yards, 900 yards. This receiver having another 4 or 5, because now we're getting into that 4,000 range. I would love to see it, though. I would love to see Terry finally get a nice cold one. He deserves it. I don't give another grown man flowers, but what I will do is I will offer you a cold one. I would love to see Terry get a cold one, man. He deserves it. So much so. I hope you're right, man. That's a really good, well-constructed comment there by Mr. John D. Rich. William Lee says, Fedarian Mathis would surprise me if he finishes one game healthy this season. Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. HTTR Carson writes, it's definitely Mathis for me as a surprise. Jahan busting, pause, would be most disappointing. Got you on that. And then Jay Blaze writes, Juice is a safety. He should never play corner. Yikes. Well, I can tell you right now, they're going to play him at corner. So that is definitely not going to be the case for him. But hey, I appreciate everybody that participated there. I told you guys we were going to, discuss it. And we were able to get through all of the comments there. So that was a great exercise. So in the future, when we have those types of videos that are put out there where I ask for your participation, if you want to be a part of the conversation, leave your comment in the comment section and we'll get to as many of those as we can sometimes, right? Anyway, let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say before we get out of here. So let's start it off with Video Channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Video Channel writes, Aiyuk out here like Kendrick on 616 in LA. Have you ever thought JD5 was working for me? It just makes you think, like, what's going on here, man? Some of this stuff is a bit weird, and I'm just like, what are we doing here, guy? Like, they're not going to trade you. You can do all of the foolishness you want, have all the theatrics. You're still under contract. The CBA states that you can't do anything, can't hold out, because you ain't built like that. You on a rookie contract, my friend. And you weren't drafted second or third overall. You was drafted like 25th. So while that's still really good first round money, it ain't life-changing money. That's what you're after right now, which is why it's so personal for you. I get it. It's just, I don't really know what you're looking to accomplish here by going about it the way that you're going about it. It's weird, but yeah. Anyway, Trevor Patch, been a member for 32 months. My guy, Trev, who writes, Lou, been a minute. It has. Been unplugged, traveling the world. I love it. I love to hear. I can't wait till I get to a position in life where I can do the same, right? Kudos to you for being able to do so. Why people caring about dude not here? No 2012 throwback series following this year's rookie QBs. Question mark. I don't think I will be doing that. I did that in 2012. I told you guys that I did that. It's called the starting five, but every one of those dudes started. So it was a little bit different. Like 6 dudes got drafted. I only expect 3 of them to start this year. So it's not the same. Like we had 5 first-round quarterbacks, and then Russell Wilson went in the 3rd round and he started. So of the 5 that went in the first round, Luck started, Robert Griffin III started, Ryan Tannehill started. Okay, it was 4 guys that went in the first round. It was Ryan Tannehill, it was Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin III, Ryan Tannehill, and Brandon Weeden. They all started, and then Russell Wilson started as a 3rd round pick. Those were the 5 guys. So you had 5 rookie quarterbacks starting that year. You're not going to have 5 rookies starting this year. You're going to have 3 at most. Now, by the time we get to the end of the year, will 5 of the 6 be starting? Probably so. But we don't know when those guys are going to finally get the nod. If Minnesota's playing good football with Sam Darnold, hard to believe that that's going to take place. Then when is J.J. McCarthy going to finally see the field? If in the case of New England, it's only a matter of time before Drake May sees the field. But the question is, when is he going to be ready? We don't know. So I don't think people care as much about Aiyuk coming here as much as they like, yo, bro, just keep our name out your mouth. Like, we good over here. We don't need any of this extra sidebar conversation. We've been chilling this whole entire time. We ain't bothering nobody. We don't want no smoke. We just want to be able to enjoy this last little bit of, downtime in peace and silence without our name being drugged through something or our quarterback's name being drugged through a process for no reason. I think that's where most of us kind of stand. Tony P56, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Tony P writes, Aiyuk, F you, pay me. To quote a very wise man, F you, pay me. That's pretty much where Aiyuk is. I don't necessarily know if he's going about it the right way, but that's pretty much his stance, right? Miss P, been a member for 33 months. Who simply writes, thumbs up the stream. Really appreciate you, Miss P. Thank you for the public service announcement. You all heard the lady in charge. Thumbs up the stream. If you haven't already done so. Really, truly appreciate you. Over 360 of you out there, yet we're still sub 200 likes. We can do so much better. So if you haven't already, please hit the like button if you enjoy this content. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Trev, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. As we mentioned earlier, I'd trade for Trent Williams before Brandon Aiyuk and retire that man in the correct jersey. Give JD5 a chance to live. 49ers ain't winning shit. Not an excuse. Well, they ain't trading Trent Williams, and they're not trading Brandon Aiyuk either. But I get what you're saying is you would prefer not to trade for Brandon Aiyuk. That's the point you're trying to make. You'd rather go out and get him some protection. The 49ers understand the value of a Trent Williams. Trent Williams got hurt last year and missed, you know, the end of the first game they lost, and then the next two that he missed, they went on a 3-game losing streak. Now they should have beat the Browns. Their rookie kicker would have made the kick. But then the next 2 weeks, they were awful on offense and they lost those games. And yes, it wasn't just Trent Williams out. Also, Deebo Samuel was out. And I think those two guys, along with George Kittle, give them their identity. Of course, Christian McCaffrey's a integral part of that. But the physicality, the tough nose, hard nature in which the 49ers play on offense, how they can beat you up physically, I think that stems from a combination of the way that Trent Williams, George Kittle, and Deebo Samuel play the game. And then you drop in a guy like Christian McCaffrey, and he just takes it to another level. But Trent Williams isn't retiring in a Commander's uniform. And when he goes to the Hall of Fame, he's going in as a 49er. So that ship has sailed. Josh, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Josh writes, I don't see AP trading for Aiyuk at all. He knows him very well. I see drama already. I don't see him trading for him either. I see him waiting this process out. He understands that the 49ers are after a Super Bowl. He just left there. He knows what their mindset is. Did he make an offer to them? Maybe he did. But he wasn't going to give away a whole hell of a lot. We've already seen, just in the little bit of time that we've, seen him here and having some of the Commanders logs and things of that nature, we kind of see how, Chef P operates. He's no pushover. He's not getting into a deal and allowing you to win, right? So I don't think it's I don't see him trading for him either. I'll just leave it at that. That's why I'm not too bent out of shape by any of this stuff. I don't get wrapped up in it. It's off-season fodder. There's nothing to talk about right now. And I just think he wants to be paid and maybe going about it all the wrong way. Because again, even if he doesn't get paid by the 49ers and another team is willing to trade for him, let's say it's not the Commander. That's why you rarely see players do this. Like, what if the Bills, which they're not going to do this, they don't have any money, but what if the Bills said, hey, we'll trade for Brandon Aiyuk and we'll pay you? You don't want to go to Buffalo? Because you said you really only want to go to 2 other teams. So, like, you don't ever want to pigeonhole yourself. If getting paid is the ultimate goal, you go anywhere and play. Video channel, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Lou, Craig Hoffman for the summer series? I guess you're just going to have to tune in to find out. LT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. LT writes, new OC, but it's Hurts' first chance to fully control the offense. And that's fine. But when you have new stuff, it takes a while for it to grow and the continuity to take place. Keep in mind that you're going to be shuffling around parts on the interior. Cam Jurgens goes from right guard to center. And I'm assuming you're going to have to replace him now. I don't know who, Steen or somebody else is going to jump in there and play guard for you. But there's no more Kelsey. And you could be weakening 2 positions with Jurgens moving over from guard to center. He's not going to be an upgrade over Kelsey, so we know that. If he's good, then that's fine. He may not be Kelsey, but as long as he's good, then you're going to be fine. But if he's nowhere near Kelsey, like if he doesn't pick up the baton and at least be able to carry it the distance it needs to go, and you see a drop off at right guard, your interior could be compromised. You could be a totally different team this year. So, yeah, we're talking about offensive coordinator. We're talking about defensive coordinator. We're talking about a number of things, but there's still moving parts and quite a bit of them with your defense. There's moving parts on the defense. New scheme, no Fletcher Cox on that defensive line that struggled last year. No more Hassan Reddick. You're bringing in a guy that's essentially a 3rd down rush specialist to play on all 3 downs. Like, it's a lot of questions in Philadelphia this year. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. As always, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. And my guy, Chris, thank you for holding the kid down and continuing to support. Always talk about the two McLaughlins holding the kid down. Really, truly appreciate you as well. Can't thank you enough for the support. My guy, Chris, writes, hey, Lou, hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise, as always, Chris. 2 questions. 1, with Terry's contract expiring in 2025, what do you estimate the team will pay contract-wise to extend him if he has a great year, and why? 2, who do you think the team will bring it as competition at kicker, and why? Who do I think the team will bring in at competition, at kicker for competition? I don't know. That one's hard to answer because I think any veteran with any experience that has shown the ability to be somewhat consistent in this league, they're going to bring him in. Like, if a guy gets cut, because like I said, there are teams with multiple kickers on their roster. At some point, they're going to make the decision, hey, we need to cut one of these kickers. We got our guy. He's proven it in camp. He went out in the preseason, killed it in the first game. All right, we've seen enough. Let's cut, this other kicker. Or I know at one point the Lions, it might have been the Jags. One of these teams had 3 kickers on the roster. I don't know if that's still the case, but it's a number of teams with multiple kickers on the roster, and you're going to see teams have to cut. That's why they're not panicking right now, because unlike skill position players or a player that plays somewhere where he needs to be integrated into a scheme and has to learn and catch up to where everyone else is, a kicker is his own entity outside of the holder and the long snapper and getting into rhythm with them. That just can come from reps and practice. You don't need to learn anything as a kicker. You come in and you do your thing. So you can wait until the week before the season to sign a new kicker to come in here and replace, Ramiz Ahmed, right? You don't have to, if this guy's not in camp with us when it starts, that's going to be a tough sell to get a kicker in. No. You can bring a kicker in here at any point. We all know that. So I'm just telling you, it's going to be a wait and see type of situation at kicker. So I can't give you any specific names. If I did the homework and the research and went around the league and looked at the teams with multiple kickers, I'd probably be able to give you a few names, but it's not that important to me right now because I know that a few kickers are going to shake free. And once they do, 1 or 2 of them will end up here in Washington. The team will take a look-see. If they like what they see, I still don't think our kicker of the regular season for the 2024 regular season is on the roster right now. I don't think Ramiz Ahmed is going to be this team's kicker. But look, until otherwise notified, it is his job to lose. So as long as he keeps making, I don't think they're going to take the job from him if he just keeps making kicks. I think if he starts to miss kicks or they start to feel like he's a little shaky, then they're going to bring somebody in with experience. But until then, I think he's fine. So we'll see. But your first question is a great one. It's a really, really good question. Terry's contract expires not this year, but after next year. So after the 2025 season. So he's essentially got 2 years left on that extension he signed a couple of years back. So with that said, if Terry balls this year, then you want to start negotiating. You don't want him to get to the final year of his deal. You want to get him a contract and you want to get him signed up. So if Terry goes out, and I think it was John D. Rich, I believe it was. John D. What was it? I'm going to be racking my brain if I don't go look it up. It was John D. Man, where you at, man? I'm moving too fast. Yeah, I was right. John D. Rich. Huh. That said earlier that he thinks 1,400 yard type of season is coming for Terry, close to 1,400. That year, that breakout year we've been waiting on for him. If that is in fact the case, then you got to break Terry off after this season. You got to go ahead and extend him and give him the ability to, I won't say finish his career in Washington, but you want to give him the opportunity to finish the prime of his career here in Washington. By the time he gets to the end of that third contract, he'll be out of his prime by then. He might still be a good receiver, but he will no longer be the prime, 78 catch, 1,190-yard Terry McLaurin anymore. He'll be a lesser version of himself, you would think, by the time he gets to age 32 or 33. But for the meantime, he's everything you want in a player. And as I said already, I think Terry McLaurin will age very well because there wasn't a lot of tread off the tires coming out of college. So he's a young, 28, 29, right? Wherever he is right now. He's a young 28 years old, 29, wherever he is, age-wise. So I still think there's a lot of good football left in him. What would the number look like? Well, obviously the number for the cap is continuing to rise, and the number for the receivers is going to continue to rise. So whatever that number looks like next year. So, okay, let's go off of this premise. The bar is set at $35 million per year with the Justin Jefferson 4-year, $140 million extension that he signed. CeeDee Lamb is going to be in that ballpark, whether he slightly exceeds it or slightly falls below it. We don't know, but the bar has been set. Terry's not coming anywhere close to that, right? But what will ultimately happen is the group of guys that Terry is in, they will then leapfrog a lot of the guys that have leapfrogged them, right? Case in point, Terry signed in that conglomerate of guys that signed for roughly $20 to $24 million. They were all in that same pocket. It was A.J. Brown initially until he got that massive extension this past offseason. It was DJ Moore signed for like 20. Then Terry signed after him for like 22, 23. And they were all in that same cluster, right? Those guys are going to be up here shortly, and they're going to then leapfrog the Amon-Ra St. Browns and potentially the Brandon Aiyuks and those guys. If you still think that there's high-level production from Terry McLaurin coming, if he has a massive season, if he and JD click, then I think Terry is next year looking for $32, $33 million a year, right? I think the number can get that high. But again, which it sounds like a lot, and it is, but that's the going rate. Amon-Ra St. Brown just got $30 million a year, essentially. That's the going rate now. So if Terry comes after Amon-Ra St. Brown and puts up a 1378 with 9 touchdowns this upcoming season, he'd be right in that realm. I mean, now you're talking 5 consecutive years of 75 catches, over 1,000 yards. And again, now that company shrinks because Stephon Diggs may not hit that threshold this year. We'll see in Houston. But Devontae Adams with the quarterback situation, it wasn't him. It was Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Terry McLaurin, and somebody else. I don't remember who that 4th receiver was, but might have been Devontae Adams. I think it was Devontae Adams, actually. Who's to say what Devontae Adams does this upcoming year, right? Whatever the case may be. I think that number is something like $32 million a year. That's my guess. 31, 32, something like that. That'd be the number for me. Zoe Life, No Life. Been a member for 14 months. Appreciate you. Who writes, 2 running backs set on leaked film. What? That's illegal in Washington. Yeah, it was gun. You had Chris Rodriguez on one side and Brian Robinson Jr. on the other side. Again, I'm not going to make too much of it, but that's why that doesn't need to be out there. I'm not one of those conspiracy theory, fans that go, "Oh, you're showing people our plays," and like nobody, they're not gathering much from a still photo of us in a formation. But I'm not gonna front. I was analyzing the shit out of that photo, right? I'm not even gonna sit here and hold you. I was looking at who was starting on the old line. I was looking at our defensive alignment. Our ends were very wide on that play. I seen the extra safety come down in the box. Like I'm not gonna even front. I was over analyzing a dumb still photo from a May practice, like a dumbass. So it is, or June, right? Whatever the case may be. I damn sure was looking at that photo hard, so I can't even sit here in front. John Perez, my guy JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy JP writes, I'm not upset with Aiyuk trying to force his way to Washington to be with JD5. When's the last time a guy like that wanted to go to DC? There aren't many. It's not about him wanting to come to Washington. I'm glad that he wants to come here. Who doesn't want to be wanted, right? That for a long time we weren't wanted. People did not want to come here. So yes, from that perspective, it is cool to see. But at the same time, there is a way to go about everything. And this ain't the way. And I'll take it a step further. This isn't going to lead to him coming to Washington. He doesn't control any of this. As a wise woman once said, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. So I personally myself would be like, yo, you want to show 49ers still shot photos of practice? Knock yourself out. Do whatever the hell you, just keep my name and my plays and formations from practice and anything to do with the command. Just keep us out of this shit. If other people want to bring us up because of your allegiance and friendship with Jay, that's what people are going to do. But you are squarely putting us in the center of shit that we got nothing to do with. I think that's where the issue lies for most fans, like myself. For a long time, everything that happened to us, good or bad, we caused it. We were the reasons that it transpired. Or this organization was. Us as fans, we just happened to be along for the ride and we had to endure a lot of shit that happened that we had nothing to do with. That was out of our control, but it is what it is. It's part of being a fan, right? Take the good with the bad. However, this offseason, none of that. And the one time that some adversity arose, they wiped their hands clean of it with the swiftness and move forward. So this is just a little off-putting because you're like, hey, what we got to do with this? We know your boy plays for the squad and you would love to come join them. That's cool, but just keep our name out your mouth, bro. Like, you got Schefter over here talking about how they tried to trade for you and all this. Like, just keep us out your mouth, bro. That's all it is for me. Just keep us off the screen. Like, you want to do your little TikToks? You can do all the TikToks that have to do with the 49ers all you want. Knock yourself out. Just leave us out of this shit. And again, I don't want any of this to spill on to Jayden Daniels. And now you got people saying, well, why does he have our play? And what is Jayden doing? And, this is why Aiyuk can't be here. And if this is his best friend, what is birds of a feather fly? Like, you got people that are going to start drawing conclusions that don't necessarily add up. Like, they're going to start doing this faulty ass 1 + 1 is 3 math that somehow leads to JD. It's just unnecessary, right? I understand what you're saying, though. There haven't been many guys that have wanted to come to Washington over the last 25 years. Well, not 25. A lot of guys wanted to come to Washington early on. It was a money grab. But since about 2015, for about the last decade or so, There's not many players that want to come here. Bruce Allen was here. Dan Snyder was here. Jay Gruden was our coach. You weren't getting any talent here. So I get it, but I'm also not cool with all of the extra stuff either. Not that I care, because again, I've said this before, I'll say it again, he's not going to be traded here. So I'd be shocked, absolutely floored if the 49ers said, you know what, to hell with this shit. We're going to trade him because they can win a Super Bowl. You don't trade away a guy that can help you win a Super Bowl. And that's all the 49ers care about is winning a Lombardi. You don't get many opportunities in this league to win. They've been to the NFC Championship game 4 times in the last 5 seasons. And in those 4 times, they've made 2 trips to the Super Bowl. They are trying to win. Kyle Shanahan has been to the Super Bowl 3 times. He's never won. He wants to win a Super Bowl. Aiyuk gives him the best chance to do that. He's not going to trade him. Just Andre, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I don't see it with St. Juice. He's shown little flashes. And the only game he had it was versus Jettas, but he still scored a touchdown on him, and he's slow and has 1 INT. So here's what we do know about Juice. High PBU numbers in college. A guy that can play physically at the line of scrimmage, a guy that on shorter routes, he can be right there, right? A guy that can be physical, a guy that if you put him in zone and you let him open up and run and he can play some solid coverage. He can stay on top of a receiver. When you press him and play man, that's where he struggles. We know he doesn't have great ball skills. He doesn't turn back, locate the football. He doesn't look to attack it in the air at its highest peak in flight. That's not who he is as a player. That was evident in college, which is why I wasn't high on drafting him. And it's shown in 4 years or 3 years going into year 4 in his NFL career. He's not going to take the ball away a ton. That said, just because you don't take it away doesn't mean you don't serve a purpose. Ronald Darby, you could argue, played his best season of his career here in Washington. It led to him getting a 3-year, $30 million contract with the Denver Broncos. He didn't have a single interception that season. He played lights out football. You don't always have to take it away to be of value to a team. But in this scheme where the ball is life and they're talking about turnovers and taking it away and putting extra emphasis on it because we've been one of the worst turnover teams in football the last 7 years, I get it. And I have my preferences. I can't speak to what you guys are looking for. The reason I didn't like Juice coming out of Minnesota was because he didn't take it away. And I have this theory that if you don't take it away at least once in college, then you're going to struggle at the NFL level. Mackenzie Alexander was another guy at Clemson, this high-profile corner. People were all in love with him, and then he fell a little bit in the draft. Still was a first-round pick, I believe, to the Minnesota Vikings. But I said, I can't get on the Mackenzie Alexander train because the man didn't have a career pick, and it's not like teams just stayed away from him at Clemson. They threw the ball at him, and he never had a pick. And he got to the NFL, and took him like 3-4 years to get his first pick in the league. And I don't even think he's in the league anymore, Mackenzie Alexander. Could be wrong, but guys like that, I can't say that they have a short shelf life in the NFL, but even the guys that only play 5-6 years in the league, they leave the league and they got 3-4 interceptions if they were a starter at any point. It's just hard for me to think that there's a high ceiling on a guy that doesn't take it away. It's not a necessity. Let me continue to stress. You don't have to take it away to be a good corner in this league, but it certainly helps. It certainly helps. I'll just say this: Juice is better than what you're projecting him to be, or what his play over his first 3 seasons have led you to feel. I think he's a little bit better than that. I think he's closer to the 2022 version that we saw than the guy we saw last year. And again, I'm willing to just about give everybody a pass who regressed last season. I'm just about willing to do that with just about every single guy. It was so bad last year. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Lou, I've seen leaked film of Commander OC Cliff Kingsbury running baits on tight end screens. Finally, an OC that utilizes unexpected and effective trick plays. Well, we ran a tight end screen to John Bates last year for like -2. So he wouldn't be the first to run a tight end screen to John Bates, and he most certainly should be the last. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you once again. My guy Trev writes, why are we talking about Percy staying? My crippled grandmother takes better angles to violently arrive to whoop. You can't fix that kind of simple. Yeah, to violently whoop your ass. Your grandma takes better angles, huh? Look, man, he was bad last year. So were a lot of guys. He may not make this football team. You're not wrong in saying that. I don't even know if he's going to make the team because I don't know if he's going to make the team. It's hard for me to wrap my brain around them keeping 6 safeties. They may not have to do that because something could happen in camp where they don't have to make a decision. You know what I'm saying? Not going to say that out loud, but anything could happen. So I don't want to dismiss anybody or anything right now. But I've already said if it comes down to one of their guys versus one of Ron's guys, you already know. You already know what they're going to decide. So it's no secret that in order for a guy like Percival to make this team, he's going to have to show up in camp and take advantage of the reps that he gets, whether it's with the second or the third team, whatever the case, he's got to get out there and he's got to show why he belongs. And that includes special teams. And then he's also got to do it in the preseason. Speaking of preseason, I am still wondering how this team is going to approach preseason games because Dan Quinn came from Dallas. They did a lot of scrimmages with the opposition and got all of that work in the scrimmages and didn't play their starters in the preseason pretty much at all. That was Dallas's philosophy. Now you're dealing with a veteran quarterback that's been in the league 7-8 years in Dak Prescott, who doesn't necessarily need preseason games. Granted, we have a rookie. He needs all the exposure he can get. So, and if you're going to put him out there, that means you have to put the starting offensive line out there. If you're going to put the starting offensive line out there, you need to put the receivers. If you're going to put Jayden Daniels is the key to seeing if any of the offensive guys are going to play in the preseason. Because if they don't put Jayden Daniels out there, then they're not obligated to put any of the starting offensive linemen, skill guys, et cetera, out there. If you put Jayden Daniels out there, you're going to put your starting offensive line in front of him. You're going to put your best skill guys out there because you want him to have the best chance to succeed and get off the field in one piece, right? So I'm kind of interested to see what they're going to do from a preseason standpoint, but I digress. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Actually, that's a triple up for you. Really appreciate you. Who writes, sidebar, thoughts on the Not Like Us video. I haven't watched it yet. My wife has tried to get me to watch it like 3 different times, and something has come up. My phone is wrong, or I'm about to check it out, and then I end up going on a tangent on Twitter or something like that. I still haven't watched it. I've seen bits and pieces. I've not watched the whole thing start to finish. I am going to do that, however. I just know this. He is still killing Drake. He is still murdering this man. That body has been recovered. It was so badly deformed and mutilated that the casket was closed, and he's still killing this man. Even the Drake stimulus package, no longer relevant. Irreparable damage has been done to this man. And he's still stomping a mud hole in this man's lifeless carcass. Can't say that I'm upset about it. Jay Black, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Jay Black writes, was hearing good things. Are you a Yankoff guy? Pause. I actually think Yankoff has a chance. Like, he's a unique cat. I'll just say that. And it wouldn't shock me if he's their Amani Rodgers from 2 years ago that comes out of nowhere to make the roster. He's a unique skill. This is the problem with Yankoff. He's making the transition from quarterback to then running back to now running back to tight end. He's going to be small and undersized, and he's going to have to learn the nuances of the position. I just don't think he'll be able to do all of that and make the team. We got enough depth at tight end now to where I think they want to continue to work with him. He'll be on the practice squad, I believe. And I think I'm going to like him in the preseason. And I'm going to be like, yo, this Yankoff dude in a couple years could be something. But I can't see him cracking the 53-man roster. Not over Ertz, Sennett, Bates. And then if you're keeping 4, you still got Cole Turner and Amani Rodgers. Like, he can't jump over, 5 different tight ends to make the roster. He's only got to jump over 3 to be the 4th and final tight end. But that 4th guy has to also be able to block. And I don't know if he's ready to do that. Right? So he's got to go through the same thing Amani Rodgers has gone through. I think he's a little bit behind the 8 ball, but I like his talent. I like his skill set. Said that when I talked about the undrafted guys. Spence Calise, thank you for being a member for 22 months. Almost at that 2-year mark. Really appreciate you, writes. No drama this offseason. Feels so weird, Louie. Doesn't it, though? But I want you guys to understand this is the new norm. Like, it shouldn't be a surprise as much as it is a relief this year. Because we knew the source of the problem. It's not like we didn't know where the issues were coming from. And that if you got rid of the problem, all of the other symptoms from the problem, the source of the issue, the symptoms will go away. So for years, we were treating the symptoms. Dan Snyder was the source of all the symptoms that were taking place. The losing, the no one wanting to be here, the poor staffs, the mistreatment of staff members, all of the shit that came with being a fan of this team. The symptoms were caused by Daniel Snyder. We kept trying to treat the symptoms instead of getting rid of the problem. We finally got rid of the problems, so now there are no symptoms to treat. So you don't have to worry about nobody not wanting to come here. Players want to come here. We just saw that. It's just hard for us to wrap our brain around it after being here for the last 15 years as a fan and having the direct opposite happen, where people are avoiding us like the plague. Nobody wants to come here. Nobody wants to coach here. And there's something negative about this team out in the news every week. That's why I said this offseason has been blissful. But this is going to be the new norm, by the way, just so you know. Like, take it all in this year, but from here on out, moving forward, expect this. This is how well-run organizations conduct business. We're about to be among them now. Christopher Wiggins, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Christopher writes, what up, Lou? Long time has been. My 757 brother. Likewise. It's good with you. He says, hope all is well with you and the fam. Again, likewise. I don't know why, but I am so even keel for this season, but these Aiyuk rumors are getting out of hand. I'm tired of it. LOL. It's crazy because these Aiyuk rumors aren't even really rumors. It's Brandon Aiyuk himself kind of generating a narrative that I don't think really truly exists, right? I think it's annoying more so than anything else. It's not harmful to us at all. He's not demeaning our team. As a matter of fact, as John Perez said earlier, some people see it as a badge of honor. Hey, he wants to come here. He wants to play for us. When's that happened last? Some people see it that way. I just see it. It's annoying because you're not coming here this year. So this is much to do about nothing. So I don't care what you do if we're not involved, but once we become sucked into this whole nonsense because you posting still shots of our practice, now you're directly involved. It's one thing if you show up to the Pivot podcast and Jayden Daniels walks in behind you, and so that's a story because everywhere they see Brandon Aiyuk, they see Jayden Daniels, and everybody wants to connect dots, and he wants a new contract, and if he can't get it from San Francisco, he wants to be traded. So naturally, people are going to insert the Commanders into that conversation. I saw a whole segment being done on Pat McAfee's show where he said he's going to Washington at some point. I don't know about that. But that's natural. That's gonna take place. Right. What I don't like is when you directly put me into some shit that I have nothing to do with. We have, as a fan base, as an organ, we have nothing to do with the Brandon Aiyuk situation. He's not our receiver. He's not looking to get paid from us. He's looking to get paid from the 49ers. We're not going to trade for him this year. The 49ers aren't going to trade him. So the fact that we have to keep talking about something that in the grand scheme of things is going to have zero impact on our 2024 season is annoying to a lot of fans, including myself at times. Christopher Wiggins, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, another thing I wanted to add. I like BA a lot, and I know he would be a stud in this offense, but am I wrong for wanting T. Higgins in DC? Just the thought I have often. No, you're not. I think the desire to want a T. Higgins type from Washington fans is more based off of his size. Like, we want a much bigger receiver here in Washington. We haven't had a good, big, possession type receiver. And pause for some of you out there. Stupid, but oh man. Leonard Hankerson was the last possession receiver with solid size, with solid size, because I think old Hank was only like 6'2" and some change. He wasn't even 6'3", but that's still way taller than anybody else. Now Luke McCaffrey is essentially 6'2", so he'll give you a little bit of that. But the last time we had a big guy, I usually categorize bigger receivers as anything over 6'2.5", trending towards 6'3". Man, you gotta go back a ways. I mean, Jordan Reed was a pseudo receiver, but he was a tight end. Like, I'm talking about just strictly receiver. I can't tell you the last time we had one of those dudes. We don't do bigger wide receivers. So and the Hank is the only guy I can come up with. And again, Hank wasn't 6'3". Hank was 6'2" and some change, maybe. I think Dontrell Inman is 6'3", but I mean, Dontrell Inman was Dontrell Inman, right? Like, but I think Dontrell Inman was 6'3". Like, if we're being technical, he had some good moments in 2020, but I mean, what are we talking about here? The last time we had a real credible threat with some size, and you got to go back a ways. Talking a long time. Dare I say Michael Westbrook, maybe? And even West, I think, was another 6'2" guy. I don't even know if West was 6'3". So I'm racking my brain trying to think of, because we've never really been a team with big, even going back to the Fun Bunch, it was a bunch of smaller guys, right? We've never really had any big receivers. When we had Ricky Sanders and Gary Clark, those are two 6 foot, sub 6 foot wide receivers, right? We really never have had any really good wide receivers that have had size on them. So I think that's why T. Higgins appeals to a lot of people, because he'll give us something that we haven't had in a very, very long time. Okay. So no, you're not crazy for wanting someone like that. Oh, Cam Sims. There you go. AJSTP003 says Cam Sims 6'5". It's easy to gloss over. Cam Sims was really good in 2020. Cam Sims had over 600 yards receiving, I believe, in 2020. Cam Sims is the last time we had a. There you go. There you go. Cam Sims. Perfect. That's the last, and I think that's why we latched on to Cam Sims so much, wanting him to be good, is because he offered us something that we just didn't have. We really never have had. And I always felt like there was more to Cam Sims than what we got out of him, but it just never happened for whatever reason. But yes, Cam Sims was legitimately 6'5", so he'd be the last guy. And he had his moments. He had his moments. Freddie Lee. That's a good pull, AJSTP003. Very easy to forget about Cam Sims. Hell, I just did it. Literally. And nobody else mentioned him. So, except you. Freddie Lee, thank you for being a member for 31 months. My guy, Freddie Lee, says, hey, Louie T, I will be disappointed in the staff if we fall into the bottom of the league on offense and defense this year. I can't see us being outside the top 20 on both sides of the ball. So for me, there's no chance this is not a top 20 defense. Zero chance. I'm gonna be shocked if this isn't a top 16, so top half of the league defense. Offensively, that's the wild card for me. I have no idea what this offense is going to be. I just, in my mind, I said, it can't be any worse than it's been the last 2-3 years. You know, Scott Turner's first year actually wasn't that bad. The years that were after his first season, not very good. There were moments, but and then we know how disastrous the offense was last year. So I can't see any way this isn't a top half of the league defense. Offense, I've already said if we could be somewhere around 20, I'm good with that after being pretty much the worst offense in football last year. If not dead last, second to last. If not second to last, we were no better than 30th last year in total offense. Points scored, yards per game, all of that good stuff. We have to be, either the second worst, the third worst, or dead last, or the absolute worst. If you can be 21st this year, that's a massive improvement from 30th, 31st, or 32nd. So that's all I'm looking for at this point. All right. John Madrano, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. John Madrano writes, Lou, is Aiyuk having footage considered tampering? I think it is. That's why I said I think he's going to be fined. Look, again, what people do in the confines of their own home without being on social media is fine. But when you post it to social media and it becomes public, now you open yourself up to potentially tamper. Like, he's openly and actively talking about wanting to play for another team. That's tampering. You're not supposed to do that, right? So, again, I don't know if he understands how this works, but he could easily be in line for a fine here. He's walking a dangerous line. His agent, I would hope, knows the rules and have expressed to him, hey, bro, you can do this, you can't do that. You can do that, but you can't do this. So if he has people working with him, for him, etc., then I hope they would give him at least the knowledge to tell him, hey, look, you're going to do whatever the hell you want to do. I can't control you. I work for you. So I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you that if you don't want to get fined, don't do this. You know, I don't know if an agent feels like he should have to do that because we don't see players doing these types of things when they're in the heat of a contractual, situation. Generally, you don't hear from the player during these types of situations. They wipe their social media clean. They kind of steer clear from talking about it because it's almost like an ongoing investigation. I'm not at liberty to discuss a lot of the particulars of the case because it's an ongoing investigation. So you just kind of don't. That's most of the time. That's how players handle their contractual situation. Like me talking about it isn't going to make the situation better. That's why when we did what we did with Kirk Cousins, Bruce Allen tried to play the old, oh, he's greedy. Like nobody wins when you do that. Nobody wins. Like it's stupid to play the contract game through the media. If both sides really want to get it done, they'll both keep quiet and work behind the scenes to get it done. I do think it's considered tampering, and that's why I think he can be fined. So we'll see what happens. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Trevor Patch writes, 17 didn't sit the last 6 years. All the cardio he's done on the field without help wore off, and he tread the tires that wasn't rubbed off at OSU. Hashtag come correct. Doesn't matter. He's playing football. Like this is the wear and tear that comes with playing ball. I don't count that against him. Once you get to the league and you're playing, and it's not like our offense is on the field a ton and he's out here. Terry isn't one of the highest targeted players in the league. None of that shit. So that to me isn't even a valid point that you're trying to make. In the course of playing, almost every year for 5 years, the normal wear and tear takes place, but he's been relatively healthy. Knock on wood. And he's been super productive. And so, like I said, I think there's a lot more good football left. The guys you worry about are the guys that were high usage players in college, and then they come into the NFL and they continue to be high usage players, especially at running back. If you were a guy getting the rock 250 to 300 times for 2-3 years at your program, and you come like Saquon Barkley came to the NFL with over like 900 touches at Penn State under his belt. If that's like your tires are already balding by the time you get to the league and they got to put a fresh set on. So it's a little bit different when you weren't the guy. I just think there's a lot more tread left on the tires with Terry. I could be wrong about that. Just Andre, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Just Andre writes, St. Juice is decent, but he still doesn't lock down receivers down. He doesn't move the needle. I'm cool with him as a backup. I'm tired of settling with players like him. And I think this new group is going to try to get us upgrades over players like him. I agree. That's what we've done for a number of years. We've settled for players like that. I think we're moving, and that's what this year is about, building a foundation and setting a standard for what a commander, or as they've said, what the commander tag looks like, what that stamp looks like. For so long, we haven't actually known what it means to be a member of this organization. From a player standpoint, what are they actually looking for? There are certain players you can look at and say, yo, that's a Raven, that's a Steeler, that's a, fill in the blank. That's an Eagle, that's a, a Cowboy or whatever. You can say, I can see him playing for that team. There's who didn't know that the kid that broke the combine record, the Texas receiver, who didn't know he was going to Kansas City? Who didn't already say, yo, he looked like Worthy, right? Who didn't say, man, Worthy looks like a Chief? Who didn't say that? How many mock drafts did you see with Worthy being mocked to the Chiefs? So on draft night, when the Chiefs trade up to get him, did that surprise you? No, you know why? Because in your mind, you already said he looks like a Kansas City Chief. There's certain traits and characteristics that you associate with certain teams where you go, yeah, he looks like he should play with them. There's no such thing that exists here in Washington. We have no identity. You can't say, well, once upon a time, hey, you want some nasty offensive line play, Washington's got what you're looking for. They're going to put your dick in the dirt. We're generations past that day, right? That's come and gone. We were trying to build a monstrous defensive front. It did not work. For years, the last 5 years in particular, people have, anytime they talk about Washington, oh man, they got some really good defensive linemen. Their defensive front is as good as there is in football. And we would go, oh really? Tell us more about this ferocious front that you speak of. Tell us more. We're going to forge an identity, I believe. And hopefully the identity includes more blue chip players and less guys that just get us by, right? That's the goal. DJ23, been a member for 17 months. Really appreciate you, who writes, man, Juice can't even get a pick in Madden, LOL. Well, if you can't catch in real life, then they're not going to give you hands in Madden. So, I mean, it makes sense, right? That's why the Madden ratings are what they are. They base them off of real life production. If you're really fast in real life, you're really fast on the game. If you have tremendous carry and you don't fumble as a running back, guess what? Your carry is going to be very high on Madden. Conversely, if you fumble all the damn time, guess what you're going to do in the game? You have a low carry and you're going to fumble the football, right? They base it off of real life attributes, or at least they try to. So, man has one career pick, had no career picks in college. What do you think his hands are going to be? His catch is going to be on Madden. It's not going to be very good. So, anyway, I digress. So, let me do this before we get out of here. I told you I would give you my most disappointing and my the biggest surprise, right? So the most disappointing for me would be Daron Payne, and it's not even close for me. Here's the thing, and I think it was John D. Rich again who talked about Payne and said 2022 was an anomaly. And if you look at his numbers statistically, it was, right? But what that one season showed me is that he's capable. And once I know what you're capable of, there's no going back for me. The bar has now been reset. It's a lot higher, and now there are expectations. The reason I didn't want this team to draft Daron Payne back in the 2018 draft in the first round, when there were other players like Derwin James and Tremaine Edmonds on the board, is because I saw a higher ceiling with those players than Daron Payne. I didn't think Payne could get to the quarterback consistently. I knew he could stop the run. I knew he'd be solid, going out there, but not enough to be the, 13th pick in the draft, I believe is where he was taken. Fast forward to 2022, I was like, I don't blame them for not giving him the contract. He wanted it in 2022. He didn't get it going into that season. They said, prove it, and then we'll give you a contract. And then what did he do? He went out and he proved it. We've seen many a guy ball in the contract year, never to do it again. So why he would be the most disappointing for me is because I'm not okay with Daron Payne having 4 sacks. Not after you had 11 and a half. I know this man took over games in 2022. He wasn't just a good player. He was one of the best players in football. I yearn for that on this team. I yearn for that defensively. I don't think you guys understand this about me. So I'm going to explain this. For me, watching good offense is fun, and I enjoy it thoroughly. And if you've got a dynamic offense, these games are going to be fun, and they're going to light up the scoreboard, and all of that is great. I'd much rather have a dominant defense because not much is required when your defense is dominant. I'd much rather have the ability to stop teams from scoring 20 than to be able to score consistently over 20. because you're going to win more games stopping teams from scoring 20 than you are just scoring over 20, because the rest of the league can score over 22. And if you get in shootouts and your defense isn't very good, guess what? You're going to lose a lot of those shootouts anyway, right? I.e. the Chargers. And a number of other teams who get into shootouts and don't win them. But if you have a dominant defense, i.e. the Jets is a good example. You're going to be on the Jets have been in a lot of ball games. They don't win them because their offense stinks, which is, you don't want to have like one end of the spectrum and then the other end, right? The defense is one of the best in the football and the offense is one of the worst in football. You don't want to be on opposite ends of the spectrum. If their offense in New York with the Jets was just slightly below average, there would have been a playoff team the last 2 years. Slightly below average, but they haven't been. They've been putrid. So playing that kind of defense gives you a shot. I would much rather see my team play that type of defense because I know I'm going to be in every game. If you have a high-octane offense, but you have one of those days where you can't do anything right, you could be Dallas. Get your ass whooped by Buffalo. Get your ass whooped by San Francisco. You essentially describe Dallas. I don't want to be that. I don't mind being that because they've won 12 games each of the last 3 years. I don't mind being that, but I want the defense to carry its own weight consistently, not just creating turnovers either. So I think having a guy like Daron Payne helps you establish a dominant defense. And a guy on the interior that can get to the quarterback, as we've seen. You look at teams who hoist the Lombardi, the last 3 Super Bowl winners all had dominant interior defensive linemen. Rams won it in 2021 with Aaron Donald, and each of the last 2 seasons, the Chiefs have won it with Chris Jones inside. If you can get to the quarterback from the interior position, you got a chance to do some damage. And if you want to take it back to 2020, the Buccaneers had Vita Vea, and the team playing against them in the Super Bowl, Kansas City, right? You go back to 19, San Francisco 49ers, Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner. Again, I can go on and on. If you have elite defensive line play, the Eagles got there. They had Fletcher Cox. They had all kinds of guys getting to the quarterback from the inside. They led the league in sacks that year, so everybody was eating. D tackles. Remember, their defensive tackle had like 12 and a half sacks that year and got the massive contract from the 49ers, right? So Javon Hargrave had like 12 and a half sacks that year. Got that big contract from the 49ers after the season. If you find me a dominant defensive tackle, I will find you a defense that was really good and probably ended up making it to the championship game. The Ravens had Justin Madubuike have a breakout year and a contract year. 13 sacks or whatever, 14 sacks, whatever crazy number he had this year. After, I don't think he probably had that combined his first 3 years. I don't know if the Ravens were the #1 defensive team in football. They were pretty high, and they made it all the way to, they were the #1 seed in the AFC, and they made it all the way to the AFC championship game. You find me a dominant defensive tackle, I will show you a defense that is capable of taking their team where they want to go. I see that in Daron Payne. And if you tell me that he doesn't get back there, oh, there is no level of disappointment that will reach Daron Payne being a basic 4.5 sack guy. We can get anybody to get 4.5 sacks. Casey Tuhill had 4.5 sacks last year. I don't need Daron Payne doing that. We didn't draft Daron Payne to be a 4.5 sack guy that kind of blends in like he did last year. Last year, he blended in. He's supposed to be a standout. 2022, he took over games. The Vikings game, he wrecked that game from the jump. The first Giants game, he forced a fumble on the first possession of the game, set the tone. He was a havoc wreaker in 2022. You had to account for him every single game, every single quarter, every single snap he was on the field. You had to account for 94. That's what I need from Daron Payne. And if he's not doing that, I have a problem, a massive problem. Sam Cosmi would be super disappointing because I see him as the next guy in line to anchor this offensive line. He's supposed to be the next guy that stands up and says, all right, I'll be the dominant force on this offensive line. I'll be the Pro Bowl, the perennial Pro Bowler, might sneak in and be an All-Pro once or twice. He's supposed to morph into that. I saw shades of that last year. Now I need to see it again to believe what my eyes saw last year. I'd be really disappointed if he didn't follow that up in a contract year, I may add, with another really outstanding season at guard. Terry would be next in terms of disappointment. Not getting to 1,000, it would suck, but it's not the end of the world for me. But I want to see him keep that streak alive, obviously. But Daron Payne has a chance to be one of the best at his position. Terry doesn't. Terry has a chance to be really good. And when we talk about, the top 15 receivers in the league, he belongs in that discussion. But Daron Payne has a chance to be in the discussion if we're talking top 5 defensive tackles in all of football. He has a chance to be in that discussion. I need him to get back to that. On the surprise side of things, I think I would be more surprised with 2 guys in particular. Dyami Brown. First of all, if Benjamin St-Juste has more than 1 interception, and they're not tipped passes where he's just in the right place at the right. Like if he actually undercuts a route, like plants drives and picks some shit off. Did my eyes deceive me? What? If he gets, I think the number I said that was 3 picks, 3 or 4 picks. He gets that in 1 season? What? I'd be very shocked. You damn right I'd be surprised. I'd be more shocked by that than Phidarian Mathis getting 6 sacks. Phidarian Mathis just hasn't played enough. You guys don't know if he sucks or not. He just sucks because we overdrafted him and he hasn't played because he's been injured. So you just equate not playing with sucking. It's 2 different things. We don't know what Phidarian Mathis can bring. Small sample size. I watched Benjamin St-Juste for 3 years now. I know what he is. I know what he isn't. You tell me he gets 4 picks next year? Yeah, I'd be pretty damn shocked. I wouldn't be as shocked if Phidarian Mathis got 6 sacks. I wouldn't be. Some of you would be floored. I wouldn't be. In this defense, when they're mixing and matching parts and they're blitzing and they're aggressive, I could see him being the beneficiary of Jamin Davis eating, Frankie Louvu eating, Dorrance Armstrong eating, and all of a sudden, you're not even thinking about Phidarian Mathis when he comes in the game. You got other issues to attend to, and he sneaks in, you're not paying attention to him, and all of a sudden, he gets a free run at the quarterback. I can see that happening 2 or 3 times, and first guy wins, they don't get it, and he cleans it up. I can see him falling into 2 of those sacks, too. I can see him having a Tim Settle type season where he ends up, you look up and he's got 5.5, 6 sacks. That wouldn't surprise me as much as it surprises a lot of you. Benjamin St-Juste with 4 picks, Dyami Brown with 700 yards. That shit would shock me because I just don't see it happen. Just don't see it happen. I don't think Percival Butler's going to play enough to amass the stats that it would take to surprise me. But you just never know. Hell, he might not even make the team. I mean, that's a realistic possibility that he's not here. They have no ties to any of these guys, no matter where they were drafted. That includes the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th round. They have no ties to any of these guys, which is why Derek B felt even comfortable saying that Ron might not have 5 guys that he drafted here next year, because they have no allegiance to any of those players. They're going to have to prove that they belong here, or else they'll get rid of them. I think that's 5 is a crazy number, though. Like, you're going to have 5 dudes from last year's draft still here. Like, that's a crazy number. And I think you're going to have most of 2022's draft still here. Rodriguez, Jahan Dotson, Mathis isn't going anywhere. Cole Turner, we'll see if he makes this roster, right? That's one of the ones where we don't really know. Chris Paul, I think, is going to be here for a little while longer. So we'll see, right? But that's how I viewed it. De'Ron is by far and away my biggest disappointment. If he doesn't rise to the level that I know he's capable of in this defense, where they told us we feed the studs. Well, De'Ron Payne is one of the biggest studs we have on the defense. If you can't feed him and if he can't eat in this scheme that is set up for guys like him to thrive, I can't foresee a situation in which he gets back. He would have been another simple case of one of these dudes in a contract year balling, knowing what was at stake, but that's just not how he's really built. And I refuse to believe that about De'Ron Payne. I just do. I think he's a dog, a straight up dog. And I think he proves it this year. So anyway, just Andre, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, people forget that Han would have had 10 touchdowns if not for his injury. I was telling my buddy that the other day. Like, what people forget is that rookie season, I don't know if he eclipses 1,000 yards. Had he not gotten injured, he probably would have. If you look at his numbers at the beginning of the season and what he was doing those first 4 games before he got hurt in week 4 against Dallas. But those first 3 weeks, he wasn't really good in the Eagles game, week 3. But the first 2 games, Lions and Jags, he was outstanding. And then he had the touchdown catch against Dallas. And he was actually having a really good game against the Cowboys before he got hurt. He was on track to either 1,000 yards or just shy of 1,000 yards. And he was going to eclipse 10 touchdowns. He had 7. He led the NFL. When he got injured, he led the NFL in touchdown grabs. Like, we don't do that in Washington. Yet that's where he was after. Like, he was hurt for week 5. And I think even after week 5, he was still tied for the lead in touchdown receptions. It wasn't until like week 6 that they overtook him. So anyway, yeah, a lot of people forget Han's about that life. And I think he's going to remind a lot of people this year what he was definitely worth a first round pick. Definitely worth a first round pick. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me here on this installment of the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you. Oh, let me tell y'all this while I got you here. So Bleacher Report just hit me up, impromptu, and they want me to do a show on Thursday at 11 a.m. So this Thursday, July 11th at 11 a.m., I will be doing a Bleacher Report, and I think what I'm going to try to do is simulcast it, both on Bleacher Report and on my channel. That's the goal, right? I'm going to see if I can work out the kinks. Sometimes I have issues with that with Bleacher Report and their studio. It doesn't always jive with everything that I've got going on, but that's the goal, is to simulcast it. But it's essentially, let me get the exact phrase. I don't want to mess this up. Building the all-time Commanders roster is what I will be doing. What a fun exercise that's going to be. So I'll be doing that on Thursday. Hopefully you'll be able to join me for that. We will be live Thursday night. So maybe we can kind of take that conversation and explore it further that night, in addition to anything else we need to discuss. But that's going to be a fun exercise. I'm looking forward to doing that. And yeah, I can't wait to put together the greatest roster that I can assemble of Washington Commanders. It's funny because piggybacking off of the conversation that I brought up about the Mount Rushmore, this is like akin to that. So anyway, I digress. We'll see. So I'll be doing that on Thursday morning, 11 a.m. Hopefully you'll be able to join me. If not, you know, it's going to be here, right? You just catch it on playback if you're at work or you sleep or whatever. But I just wanted to put that out there for those of you who might be available. Come check the kid, right? Come check the kid. Anyway, I digress. You guys have a good one. Take care. Y'all know what it is. Post up. Take command. I think I already did that, but in case I didn't, I'd rather do it twice than not do it at all. Y'all know what it is. Get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll get at y'all next time. God bless. Good night.